Douluo, I'm really not a rice god. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. I disagree. Ask for a monthly pass. Ning Feng's he thought carefully for a while, nodded, and said, King is right. It is indeed inappropriate to consider it as a teacher. Xiaoshen's opinion must be sought for marriage matters. Teacher. You are right, Ning Feng's he changed the subject and asked her opinion again. King, what do you think of this marriage? Of course King agrees to this marriage. Qian Renxue forced a smile, biting her red lips slightly. Her voice sounded somewhat restrained. Haha, with King, you can rest assured as my teacher. Ning Fengzi had a smile on his face and his tone became much more cheerful. The main purpose of his visit this time was to ask Zhu King's opinion. As long as he could agree to the marriage, there would be no problem for Angrang and Lingtian. Ning Fengzi took Qian Renxue and talked for a while about the throne. After a while, Ning Fengzi raised his head and glanced at the sky, stood up and said seriously, it's getting late. It's time for me to go to Qian'an City. Qian'an City, a flash of light flashed in Qian Renxue's eyes. She put away her unhappiness and said with a serious face, Teacher, do you also want the token of Lingtian Palace? Well, the Orange Killing Order is of great significance. The Qibao glazed sect cannot give up this opportunity. Ning Fengzi nodded and said solemnly. In the final analysis, Qibao glazed sect is still an auxiliary sect. Although there are currently two titled Douluo, Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo, who have become the faces of the upper three sects, if there are no new titled Douluo to protect the 7 treasure glazed sect in 100 years, then the current scenery will become yesterday's flowers. Leaving behind an Orange Killing Order can also leave a chance for Qibao glazed sect to revive. King would like to wish the teacher in advance that this trip to Qian'an City will be full of hairpins. Qian Renxue bowed and raised her hands, saying loudly. Ning Fengzi smiled indifferently. Hahaha, I borrow King's good words as my teacher. With the financial resources of the Qibao glazed sect, if he really wanted to bid for the token, no other sect would be qualified to compete. While saying this, Qian Renxue escorted Ning Fengzi out of the front hall. Just as they were about to be delivered to the main entrance of the prince's mansion, a high-pitched voice suddenly came. Your Majesty, do you have your Majesty? I have ordered you to go to the palace immediately. After receiving the order, Father? Qian Renxue looked at Ning Fengzi with a confused look on her face. A glimmer of light flashed in Ning Fengzi's eyes. After a moment of silence, he said in a deep voice, King, your Majesty summoned you so urgently. You must have something important to discuss. You must enter the palace quickly without delay. Teacher, King will go first. Qian Renxue took a deep breath and nodded heavily. Zuling, give me a gift for the teacher. No. Zuling took a step forward and answered with her hands raised. Looking at Ning Fengzi's retreating back, Qian Renxue's eyes flashed with warmth, but she quickly hid it perfectly. Engagement. I won't agree. Ning Fengzi, Ning Rangrong, no one can take Xiaoshen away. After coming back this time, she must keep an eye on Xiaoshen, and she must not let anyone from the Qibao glazed sect come into contact with Dao Xiaoshen. Lingtian is hers and only belongs to her. Although Qian Renxue still can't tell whether she has more family affection or that kind of affection for Lingtian, she doesn't allow anyone to intervene before she makes a decision. Seeing that Qian Renxue didn't respond for a long time, the father-in-law in the palace said softly, Your Highness, your Majesty is still waiting for you in the palace. No, please lead the way. Qian Renxue sighed and put back her racing thoughts. NUO. The man finally breathed a sigh of relief and quickly took Qian Renxue onto the prepared carriage, speeding all the way towards the palace. A moment later, Qian Dou Palace. Qian Renxue is following the chamberlain, waiting at the door of Emperor Zuai's palace. At this moment, she felt a little uneasy. Because today's events were beyond Qian Renxue's control. She didn't know why Zuyi hurriedly called her from the prince's mansion tonight. No matter how many insidious inquiries she made along the way. The chamberlain who led the way remained tight-lipped and did not reveal any useful information point. If she hadn't been very confident in herself, she would have doubted whether her identity had been exposed. Ahem. From the bed covered with golden curtains, bursts of rapid coughing could be heard. Emperor Zhuai was leaning on the bedside. He had just suffered a serious illness. His face was haggard and his lips were white. The surrounding chamberlains and maids lowered their heads and carefully served on both sides. Ever since the imperial doctor treated Emperor Zhuyi today, his temper has become irritable. Even the right prime minister who came to visit him was scolded and left the palace in disgrace. So at this time, these palace ladies and chamberlains were naturally cautious, fearing that Zhuyi would take out her temper on them. The attendant lowered his head and slowly walked into the palace, knelt respectfully beside the bed and said, "Your Majesty, the eldest prince has arrived. King is here. Ahem. Let him come in." Upon hearing King, Zhuyi's tone softened a lot. With the help of the palace maid, Zhuyi got up from the bed and waited for Qian Renxue's arrival. The eldest prince and crown prince of the Qian Dou Empire, King. He is also his most valued heir now. In the past few years, the Qian Dou royal family has gone through many twists and turns, which has made Emperor Zhuai mentally and physically exhausted, especially the eldest prince and 3 princes who died unexpectedly one after another. The pain of losing a son is even more indescribable. But as the emperor of the Qian Dou Empire, he cannot fall. In order to prevent the royal family from falling into the dilemma of having no successors, Zhuyi established the ordinary King as the crown prince of Qian Dou, thus stabilizing the turbulent situation. But I didn't expect that King, as the prince, could withstand the pressure far beyond Zhuyi's expectations. At the same time, Zhuyi began to pay attention to King for the first time and continued to test his abilities with more emphasis on political affairs and military affairs. Zhuyi was even more pleased with his perfect performance. In my heart, I recognized King more and more and even thought of abdicating countless times. Unfortunately, Zhuyi didn't know that the King in front of him was no longer his son King, but was disguised as Qian Renxue, the saint of Wuhan Palace. Chapter 77 Father and son asking for a monthly pass. Father Emperor, Qian Renxue took a step forward, and a gift was in his hands. Her complexion was full of respect. After lurking for more than 10 years in the Qian Dou Empire, her control of her expression had long been to the point of the fire. Yes. Zhuai beckoned, a gentle tone. King, come to the father and emperor. Qian Renxue was relieved slightly. Although I didn't know the reason, the mild attitude of Zhuai was not developing in the direction of bad. She walked slowly to the snowy bed and planned to watch Zhuai. The next thing, King, if you remember the father, you should have 29 today. Zhuyi asked Qian Renxue to sit next to the bed, and the father and son pulled up the family back to father emperor. Exactly it is. Qian Renxue responded softly, old, looking at the Qian Renxue in front of him. When he was young, Zhuai said with emotion, at that time, the father was almost ascended to the throne at your age. Children's stupidity. How can I compare with the father and emperor? Qian Renxue shook his head and said humility. Ha, my child is modest. Keek. The rapid cough interrupted Zhuai's laughter, and his face became red. Qian Renxue said anxiously, Father Emperor, keek. Nothing. Old problem. Although it was said on the mouth, there was a complex color of Zhuai's eyes. He recently felt that his body was getting worse and worse. It may be because of the injuries left by when he was young, or the influence of the prince's violence. His current physical condition has deteriorated. For the future of the empire, he decided to determine the heir for the Dou. Although the identity of Prince King River has almost no other turning point on the board. But except for the authorization given by Zhuai, the real power in his hands is still poor, and even compared with Prince Zhuxing Prince. However, this phenomenon is very common in the royal family. After all, no matter which emperor, he will not divide the power in his hand to the prince when he is still alive. In fact, if Zhuai's physical condition is getting worse and worse, he would not be able to divide the power in his hands. However, if you calculate this, he did not intend to give power directly to the prince. Instead, he intends to use the complicated situation of the situation to test the true ability of the prince. In his opinion, Qian Renxue is still a little tender. Although she has contacted a lot of military affairs, these are all policies and policies on the memorials. She has never practiced in the court. There is no practice in the MT theory, but it is just a talker on paper. To give the empire to such a person, Zui is 100 uneasy. Therefore, it is to deal with the government alone, judge the form of empire, and host the game with the minister. King, I'm uncomfortable, and I can't distract the government affairs in a short time, so I plan to let you supervise the country's government. During the speaking, Zui did not know that I took out a book that had been prepared from there and looked at it. At a glance, I have been in the housekeeper who has been around him for many years. The inner waiter leads the gods and stepped forward to take the scriptures and open up. The emperor of the Qian Dou Empire, the snowy knight of the emperor of the empire, made Wuzizu king river and supervised the country as a prince today. Everything in China, regardless of military and political, etc. Now it is handled by the prince. Do not delay, the offenders cut, the opportunity is here. Hearing this, Qian Renxue's eyes flashed a touch of excitement. After so long in the Tenmao Empire, the opportunity she waited was finally here. The moment I saw the scripture. Qian Renxue knows that he has been waiting for many years of chance, and finally came. This is Zui's last assessment of her. As long as she succeeds in the throne of the empire, she is already available. His Royal Highness. After reading it, the housekeeper put away the book and retreated. At the same time, Zui looked at Qian Renxue deeply. King, don't let the father disappoint. Father. Emperor is assured that king will not let you down. The clear and firm eyes looked at Zui, saying a word and a meal. She understands that Zui has made attention. At this time, she does not reflect her self-confidence. When will I wait? Okay. When I heard Qian Renxue, Zui laughed. It's confident enough. It is indeed my son. Lion claimed that he praised, and Zui then sideways said, take out the nodes of the nodes and give it to the king. Promise. Internal servants went to the back hall, and after a while, took out a handle. It is a short stick with silver white, and the top of the short stick depicts the swan symbolizing the royal family. The eyes of the swan are made of two small sapphires. At the same time, there is a pair of white wings open to the left and right. The lifelike wings are lifelike, and the short stick is carved with exquisite lines. King, this knotted stick was given to me when I was in his pro-government. The emperor first. Zui paused, watching this familiar short stick, remembering the memories of the past, and then full of expectations. I will make him with you today. King is settled in the expectations of the father. Okay, believe you for your father. Zui pointed at the internal servant next to him and said, Qilin, king's first pro-government. From today, you follow the king to help. Nuo. As soon as the words fell, Qilin came behind Qian Renxue. Qilin is an old man who has followed Zui for many years. From the time when he was the emperor to the present, he was a well-deserved confidant. He put Qilin beside Qian Renxue just to examine her ability. Qilin is now the eyes of Zui, responsible for conveying all the news when Qian Renxue's pro-government and preventing correction of Qian Renxue. After all, the national event is not a child's play, and naturally he will not really ignore it. Well, King, let's go down first. Zui said warmly. Yes. Looking at the back of Qian Renxue's departure, Zui hoped that his prince was in his heart, and he would not live up to his expectations of his old father. Thinking of this, Zui was tired lying on the bed. His body was too bad, so he sits and sat for a while, and the thin sweat beads spread all over his forehead. Outside the palace. Qian Renxue stopped and said with a smile, please enlighten up and teach more in the future. His Royal Highness lifted. His subordinates just did the order. Qilin gave a gift. Although he lowered his head, his attitude was not humble. Order. It's Zui's command. I won't let Father Emperor disappoint. At the same time, Qian Renxue glanced at Qilin deeply and then stopped, turning away, and Qilin followed silently behind him, pursuing Zui's mission to him. Chapter 78. Little brother, can I give one to my sister? Ask for a monthly pass. At the same time, inside Shrek Academy. Although Lingtian had lived in Shrek for more than a month, he didn't actually have much luggage. In addition, the space in the storage ring was large enough, so it took him less than 10 minutes To pack it all, soon we were in front of Shrek Academy. Ningli stopped and said, "Junior brother, be careful on the road." Lingtian nodded and reminded, "And the letter I gave you, senior brother, don't forget to give it to senior sister Angrong." "Don't worry, junior brother." When he turned around and didn't find the familiar figure, Lingtian sighed helplessly and thought to himself, "It seems that I have really offended senior sister Rangrang this time." Immediately, Lingtian no longer missed it, and the ice G frost sword flashed in blue light and appeared in front of him. Then he jumped up, stepped on the Bing G sword with both feet, and his whole body turned into a stream of light and soon disappeared from Ningli's sight. Well, when Lingtian went away, Ningli sighed, turned to face a lush tree, and said faintly, "Everyone has gone far, and I can no longer regret it anymore." "Junior sister, you and junior brother Lingtian." Ningli opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but finally swallowed it. "This is a letter that junior brother Lingtian asked me to forward to you. I'll put it here for you to read." Ningli leaned down and placed the envelope in front of the big tree, then turned around and walked away slowly. After a while, Ning Rangrang walked out from behind the tree, paused for a while, and then picked up the envelope. She hesitated for a moment, then opened the envelope, tremblingly took out the letter inside, and read it carefully without ignoring a word. Click, click, glittering tears fell from his face and scattered on the letter paper. However, Ning Rangrang seemed not to notice this, and still kept holding the letter, letting the tears fall down drop by drop. HMPH. Stinky junior brother, I will never forgive you. After a while, Ning Rangrang wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and spoke word by word, but an imperceptible smile flashed across his lips at the same time. Lingxue Palace. Since receiving Daimyo Bei's commission, the task of assassinating Lingtian has been posted on the assassination list of each branch hall. You can see the information about this task by clicking on it, but until now, no one has accepted this task. Although the purple killing order is rare, it is not worth offending a titled Douluo for it. But there must be a brave man under the heavy reward. As long as you get the reward order from Lingxue Palace, sooner or later there will be a desperate person who is not afraid of death. The sun and the moon rotate, and time flies. Lingtian stopped at Qian City, which is the closest city to Qian Dou City. He planned to rest here overnight and recover his soul power, and then rush back to Qian Dou City early tomorrow morning. As soon as you enter the city gate. After looking around for a while, Lingtian quickly found the candied horse that he had longed for. "Boss, I want all the candied horse you have." Lingtian walked to the candied horse stall, skillfully took out a gold soul coin, and placed it on the chopping board. Okay. The stall owner was surprised at first, then happily took the gold soul coins and packed them up enthusiastically. Meanwhile, right next to the stall, pedestrians on the road in Qian City were in groups, and most of them were discussing the news about the auction. Qian auction house is going to hold a large-scale auction this time, and many forces are sending people over. Is it true? Of course, the 7 treasure glazed sect, the blue lightning tyrant dragon sect, the white tiger sect, the wind sword sect, the elephant armor sect, the fire leopard sect, and the holy dragon sect have all sent people to participate in this auction. Hiss. There are so many sects. Are you afraid that this auction will fetch a sky-high price? Today's auction can be regarded as the largest one in the history of Qian City, right? It seems that tonight, let's not miss anything this time. Don't say I missed it. I heard there are identity requirements this time. It's not sure whether we can go in. What is it that can attract so many sects? I heard it looks like a token. Token? Could it be? Everyone was talking to each other and seemed to be full of expectations for tonight's auction. Auction. Lingtian became somewhat interested in this. Boss, what auction are they talking about? After the crowd passed by, Lingtian picked up a candied horse and curiously asked the stall owner for information. Young master, looks like you are an outsider. When he sees you, what they are talking about is a very large auction to be held at Qian auction house tonight. At that time, most of the prominent figures in our Qian Dou Empire will attend the auction. While the lord was collecting the stall, he enthusiastically explained it to Lingtian. The 7 treasures glazed sect is also here. The stall owner came close to Lingtian's ear, glanced left and right, and then lowered his voice and said, well, and I heard that the person who came here is of high status. Is your status not low? Lingtian's thoughts became active, guessing which elder would be coming this time. Sir, this is your candid horse. If you have no other questions, I will close the stall and go home. At the same time, the vendor had packed up the stall and was about to leave. At this moment, a beautiful figure walked from behind Lingtian, carrying an unexplained fragrance and a faint charm, and stopped in front of a vendor selling candied horse. Boss, here's a candied horse on a stick. The girl smiled and casually tucked her hair behind her ears. I'm really sorry. All the candied horse in our store today have been rounded up by the guest next to you. The stall owner raised his head in embarrassment and showed a simple and honest smile. All sold out. The girl's rosy mouth pursed slightly, her beautiful eyes sparkling. She suddenly wanted to eat candied horse today, but she felt a little disappointed when she didn't get 1 point. The girl's dark eyes rolled rapidly, and finally her target was fixed on Lingtian. Little brother, can I give one to my sister? As she said this, the girl half bent down, put her hands on her slightly bent knees, and looked at Lingtian with a smile, with a hint of charm between her eyebrows. Meaning. Chapter 79. When Lingtian, who was thinking about something, heard this, he raised his head and met the girl's eyes. There was a little joy in the girl's eyes. Just when she reached out to take the candied horse, the boy's reaction was beyond her expectation. Lingtian looked at the girl expressionlessly and said calmly, no. The girl stared blankly at Lingtian, obviously caught off guard by a scene that exceeded her expectations. There's no point in being cute. Lingtian glanced at the girl with disdain. After saying that, he took a half step back and turned his head, no longer paying attention to the girl. At the same time, he had a thought in his mind, and a Jinto coin appeared between his fingers. With a flick of his finger, it landed on the table of the store. Bang. Silver coins are spinning on the table. Sir, you have already paid me. The stall owner was stunned for a moment, then raised his head and said hurriedly. Lingtian said calmly, this is the information fee for you. Thank you. Thank you. The vendor felt happy, and then he picked up the Jinto coin. He was about to raise his head to express his gratitude, but found that Lingtian was no longer in front of him. No matter, I made a lot of money today. My wife will definitely let me sleep in my bed tonight. However, the hawker quickly forgot about Lingtian's affairs and happily imagined a happy life tonight. At the same time, the girl looked at the young man's retreating back without blinking. A flash of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she murmured in a low voice, my charm actually has no effect on him. The charm that is always invincible is actually ineffective on a child. This made the girl who had always been proud feel a sense of frustration. At the same time, the brilliance in her beautiful eyes flowed, and she became interested in Lingtian. Where did this young man come from, and why was he able to ignore his charm? Just when the girl was in a daze, a soft voice came from behind her. Nana didn't say she wanted to buy delicious food. Why are you here alone in a daze? At the same time, a pair of slightly warm jade hands were placed on her shoulders. Teacher. Hulina turned her head in response, with a heartfelt smile on her lips. This person is Hulina's master, Bibi Dong. Although she is not tall, she is plump and light. She wears a luxurious black robe with gold patterns, which outlines her perfect body curves. Her fair skin and almost perfect face make her look so unique. Teacher, I just met a very interesting person. He should be a little younger than me. When I met him just now, I found that the charm ability had no effect on him. Who? Lina told Bibi Dong about what had just happened in distress, hoping that her master, who usually had great powers, could clear up her doubts. Oh, after hearing this, Bibi Dong was stunned for a moment, and a flash of surprise flashed in her eyes. Is there anyone who can ignore your charm? Who? Lina put her hands on her hips and pouted, and nodded unhappily. Although she didn't want to admit it, Lingtian had indeed blocked his charm. Bibi Dong smiled and said, then where is he now? He's gone far. Master, can you help me find him? Lina looked at Bibi Dong expectantly, thinking in her mind how to regain her place. I haven't seen her before. How can I help you find her? Bibi Dong laughed dumbly and stroked Ulina's forehead. Ulina's face turned wide. Nana, let's go to the auction house with our master first. Bibi. Dung held Hulina's little hand and comforted her softly. Maybe you can meet that boy again. If what you said is true, with the talent of that boy, he should be a disciple of a certain sect and appear in Qian Renxue. Cheng Cheng probably came with his elders, so it should be possible to meet them. Who? Lina nodded absently. Although she followed Bibi Dung, she was still thinking about what happened just now. On the other side, following the guidance of several passers-by on the street, Lingtian saw a building with a dome shape. The building looked very strange. It was round, like half a ball stuck on the ground. There was no sign with any name on it, only the image of a hammer. Is this the auction house? Lingtian had seen similar buildings in Qian Dou city before, so he recognized it as the auction house at a glance. He quickened his pace and soon reached the auction house. Only when you get closer can you truly feel the scale of the circular building. Compared with the Qian Dou auction house, which is nearly 500 meters in diameter, the Qian Renxue auction house is slightly smaller in area, but it must be at least about 400 meters, and the highest place is more than 80 meters. The door of the auction house is also semicircular, and like the overall building of the auction house, it is milky white. There are two tall girls standing in front of the door. These girls have obviously been carefully selected. Not only are they all about 1.75 meters tall, but they also have extremely well proportioned figures. Although they are not stunningly beautiful, their good looks are still very attractive. They look like they are no more than 20 years old. Seeing Lingtian walking straight towards him, one of the four girls took 3 steps forward to meet him, bowed slightly and said, "Hello, do you need any help?" Lingtian said, "I want to go in and take a look." The girl smiled and said, "This guest, can I ask if you have the bidding qualification certification?" Lingtian was stunned and asked, "What is bidding qualification certification?" The girl showed a professional smile and said, "Only guests with bidding qualification certification can enter the auction house to bid." The qualification certification is divided into several different levels, and the entry threshold is 10,000 gold soul coins. In other words, you must have an asset certificate of 10,000 gold soul coins to participate in the auction. This is necessary to avoid malicious bidding, and because there is a large-scale auction tonight, in addition to the qualification certificate for the auction, you must either hold the invitation card issued by us, or be a Soul Master of Soul Emperor or above to enter. Lingtian frowned and said, "Is it so troublesome?" When he was in Qian Dou city before, he always entered with Qian Renxue, so no one stopped them to ask for the bidding qualification certificate. Chapter 80 Orange Killing Order. Asking for a monthly pass. The girl half bowed and said softly, "Please forgive me." Wait a moment. Lingtian thought of something, stopped the girl, and said, "Have the people from the Qian glazed sect entered the auction house?" The girl smiled slightly and said, "Guests from all major sects have already entered the venue." Lingtian breathed a sigh of relief, turned his hand, and took out a token, handed it to the welcoming girl, and said, "This is the identity token of a disciple of the Qian glazed sect. Help me give it to the people of the Qian glazed sect." 7. Treasures glazed sect? Please wait a moment, I will convey it to you now. The girl was stunned for a moment, and respectfully signed the order. She didn't dare to neglect the disciples of the great sects, so she hurried into the auction house. As soon as she took the token, after a while, the girl hurriedly ran back, respectfully returned the token to Lingtian, and made a respectful gesture of invitation. "This distinguished guest, please come with me." As she spoke, the girl walked into the auction house with small steps. Go to the auction house. It doesn't have a splendid feeling. The ground is made of milky white marble, and the surrounding walls are decorated with various reliefs. There are not many colors on the reliefs, which look simple, lively, and extremely elegant. In addition to the reliefs, there are also some display windows built against the walls, which contain displays. There are some display items such as porcelain and armor. If they didn't know what this place is for, I'm afraid many people would think this is a museum. The girl who led the way was very professional. She would stop every 10 steps or so, and make a please gesture to accurately guide the direction. The auction center is located on the 2nd floor of the auction house, and there are 8 stairs to enter from the lobby. The girl took the 2 of them to the entrance of the auction center, before turning around and leaving. There was another attendant in the auction center. The auction center feels more like a large auditorium. The layout is similar to the main fighting center of the big fighting arena. There is a circular podium in the center, with a circle of seats arranged in a radioactive ring around it. It is divided into 5 parts. The 3 rows of seats closest to the podium are red and radiate outward, followed by black, purple, yellow, and white. They are obviously set up according to different levels of bid, as the previous reception girl told them that the innermost red seats are entered through a special passage and are protected by special security personnel. That is the so-called million-level VIP area, and only people with status can obtain red VIP seats. Qualifications: the black seats in a circle outside are ordinary million-level VIP areas. Anyone with money can enter a second-level black VIP. Further outward, the purple ones are for the 500,000 level purple VIPs, the yellow ones are for the 100,000 level ordinary VIPs, and the outermost white ones are also the largest seats under the guidance of the waiter. Lingtian entered the red special passage. The waiter's attitude was very enthusiastic, with a heartfelt smile on his face, and his attitude was very respectful all the way. This kind of just-in-time service did not make Lingtian feel bored. After walking along the red passage for a while, beautifully decorated boxes appeared in front of them, and the waiter took Lingtian to a box with the pattern of the 7 treasures glazed pagoda printed on it. The waiter smiled slightly, bowed and said, "Sir, this is the location of the Kibeo glazed sect." Lingtian nodded, "Thank you," pushing open the door of the box, looking at the elegant man in white sitting in the middle, and Shenzhen with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes beside him. A look of surprise flashed in Lingtian's eyes. "Uncle Ning, teacher." He originally thought that the person coming from the 7 treasures glazed sect this time would be a certain sect elder, but he didn't expect that it would be Ning Fengzi and Sword Douluo who came in person. But this also made Lingtian even more curious as to what was being auctioned today. "I forgot to close the door for a moment and stood there blankly." "Xiaoshan, don't stand at the door. Close the door and sit over." Ning Fengzi called Lingtian to sit over and chuckled gently. "Why, are you surprised to see me and your teacher?" "It's indeed a bit surprising." Lingtian nodded. After chatting for a while, Ning Fengzi revealed a smile and said for no reason, "Xiaoshan, how is that girl Rangrong doing now?" It was about Ning Rangrong, and Sword Douluo also cast a concerned look. "With senior brother Ningli here, senior sister Rangrong should not be in danger." Lingtian did not show off and said slowly, "Moreover, senior sister Rangrong has changed a lot recently. When she returns to the sect next time, Uncle Ning and the teacher will definitely be surprised." When Xiaoshan said this, "I'm really looking forward to Rangrong's change." Ning Fengzi smiled happily, and his tone became much more relaxed. "What he cares about most is his daughter." Shenzhen asked casually, "Are you going back to Qian City?" "Well, I wanted to rest in Qian City for one night. I happened to hear the city being buzzing with discussions about the auction, and I happened to hear that someone from the sect was coming here, so I wanted to stop by and take a look." Having said this, Lingtian raised his head and looked at the two of them with hesitant eyes. "Uncle Ning, why did you and the teacher come here suddenly?" Chen Zin saw Lingtian's little thoughts and smiled calmly. "You guys want to ask what items are being auctioned today? Can your master and I come from the Kibeo glazed sect in person?" The word master means both teacher and father. A son is like a father. This sentence also applies to masters and disciples, so he can naturally guess a thing or two about Lingtian's thoughts. "Nothing can be hidden from the teacher." Lingtian touched his nose and said with a wry smile. Shenzhen thought for a moment. "Xiaoshan, do you know Lingxia Palace?" "Lingxia Palace?" Lingtian was stunned for a moment after hearing this and shook his head honestly. Apart from Wuhan Palace, the 2 great empires, the upper 3 sects and the lower 4 sects, he really didn't know about the forces of Lingxia Palace on Douluo continent. The Lingxia Palace is the largest assassin organization on the Douluo continent. There are 5 levels of assassination orders in the palace, namely the Black Killing Order, the Purple Killing Order, the Red Killing Order, the Orange Killing Order, and the Silver Killing Order. According to different tokens, levels will be targeted at soul masters with different soul power levels. Speaking of this, Shenzhen's tone suddenly changed. "As long as the Lingxia Palace takes over the task, even titled Douluo and the others dare to assassinate them, As far as I know, 3 titled Douluo have been assassinated by them. Note, this is what Sword Douluo knows. The total number of kills in Lingtian Palace mentioned above is what Sword Douluo knows. Chapter 81. Get one of them. Ask for a monthly ticket. Isn't there anyone who has thought about annihilating Lingtian Palace? Lingtian frowned and couldn't help but said, of course, but they hide it too deep. Ning Fengzi took a sip of tea, her voice as gentle as ever, and patiently explained, if we can't find the old nest of Lingtian Palace, it will be useless. Even if we destroy more branch halls, they will be able to quickly establish a batch of new branch halls. After pondering for a moment, a flash of realization flashed in Lingtian's eyes. Uncle Ning, is your visit to the auction house this time also related to Lingtian Palace? Ning Fengzi nodded and changed the subject. The auction house's highlight is the orange killing order from Lingtian Palace. Orange killing order. It is a second-class token of Lingtian Palace. He has successfully assassinated title Douluo many times, and the status of the orange killing order is similar to that of a nuclear weapon deterrent, which is very attractive to most sects, and even more so for those sects that do not have title Douluo. But from the beginning of the establishment of Lingtian Palace to now, the orange killing order has appeared only a handful of times, let alone 3 tokens appearing in a row like today. The sects gathered at the auction today were all here for this token. Some forces even sold their ancestral property in order to raise enough funds to obtain this orange killing order and use it to increase the power of their sect. Although the Kibeo glazed sect has 2 titled Douluo, no one can have too many deterrent weapons. Moreover, Ning Fengzi also had to think about the next generation of the sect. If the sect did not have the support of a titled Douluo, having an orange killing order to deter the sect could also help the sect survive the dangerous period. Therefore, the 3 orange killing orders in this auction must be collected by the Kibeo glazed sect. Ning Fengzi has this confidence. I see. After hearing Ning Fengzi's words, Lingtian nodded suddenly. Given the importance of the orange kill token, it must require a large amount of money. Ordinary elders are not qualified to transfer it. In addition, the importance of the item, so Ning Fengzi can only take action personally, while Sword Douluo is responsible for protecting his safety. Ning Fengzi turned his head and said calmly, if Ziocean likes something, just increase the price. The most important thing our Kibeo glazed sect is short of is money. What? Fengzhi said is right, just take a photo of something you like. Sword Douluo said unfazed, yeah. Lingtian smiled lightly and nodded. If he meets something he likes, he will definitely not be polite. After all, the Kibeo glazed sect's financial resources are second to none in Douluo continent. To Ning Fengzi, money is just a bunch of numbers. If it weren't for the fear of causing unnecessary trouble, even if there were 3 tokens together today, the Kibeo glazed sect would still have the financial resources to win it. At the same time. Just as a few people were talking, the auction finally opened. At this moment, hundreds of seats below were completely occupied, and the boxes on their level were all lit up without exception. It's finally starting. The last time there were so many people was when we were auctioning the 10,000-year-old soul bone. Look, the boxes above are all full. Of course it's full. Almost all the sects of the entire Qian Dou Empire are gathered at this auction. Just when everyone was talking about it, the host on the auction stage in a suit and leather shoes walked up. He held a loudspeaker and smiled at the bidders. Good evening everyone, I'm the auctioneer Shen Yuan. This time Qian Renxue will be in charge of all auction matters at the auction house. During the auction, I hope everyone will abide by the rules. I am announcing that tonight's auction at Qian Renxue auction house will now begin. Shen Yuan raised his hand to signal to the girl behind him. Our first lot. At the same time, a tall girl held a tray covered with red cloth in her hands and placed it on the stand in the middle. He lifted off the red cloth covering it, revealing a bracelet-shaped soul guide. This is a storage type soul guide. There is 30 cubic meters of space inside. It is a rare storage type soul guide. The starting price is 100,000 gold soul coins. Each increase in price must not be less than 100,000 gold soul coins. 1,000 gold soul coins. No upper limit. Bidding starts now. Shen Yuan spoke impassionately and successfully aroused the enthusiasm of the audience. As soon as I finished speaking, Someone immediately made a bid. 102,000 gold soul coins. 105,000 gold soul coins. 109,000 gold soul coins. 190,000 gold soul coins. 200,000 gold soul coins. 250,000 gold soul coins. 300,000 gold soul coins. 400,000 gold soul coins. The price has almost skyrocketed. Within a few breaths, it has soared to 400,000 taels. However, the bidders were all without exception. They were basically some small sects or soul masters who were casual cultivators and had no influence. Forces such as the upper 3 sects, lower 4 sects, and the spirit hall did not bid point, because for ordinary soul masters as a storage soul guide, the bracelet itself has great allure. Even the soul emperor may not be able to have a storage soul guide, not to mention that there is 30 cubic meters of storage space inside point. Although many of the people participating in the auction this time were interested in the soul bones and the treasures behind them but they also know it very well. This time, the Qian auction house gathered almost all the sect forces in the mainland. Real treasures are not something ordinary soul masters like them can take. Even if they are taken, they can't save them without extreme strength. So the real purpose of many people is just to come and see the world, or buy some ordinary auction items, such as the storage space soul guide, which is still very exciting. 100,000 gold soul coins. As the price was revealed, the venue fell silent. 100,000 gold soul coins for the first time. 100,000 gold soul coins for the second time. The third time of 410,000 gold soul coins. The deal is done. Shen Yuan looked around and counted down. The high price was 410,000 gold soul coins. No one could pay more than this price. Moreover, he was very satisfied with the transaction price. This is a good sign for a good start. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 30,000 Years with Spirit Bones. Ask for a monthly ticket. In the end, this storage bracelet was bought by a prestigious soul saint for a price of 410,000. However, his huge body did not fit this small bracelet. It should be given to his descendants, or to him. A friend of mine took the photo. However, these matters have nothing to do with Shen Yuan. He is only responsible for selling the items at the highest price possible. At this point, the dust of the first auction has settled. The maid who had been waiting there for a long time came forward again and took away the wooden box containing the storage bracelet, and then another equally tall maid came up holding a new wooden box. Open the wooden box. Placed inside is a strange lavender soul bone that does not belong to any part of the body. The second item in this auction is this 30,000-year-old Zingayu Fox's outer soul bone. What did he just say? Soul bones, 30,000 years old, still have soul bones attached to them. It's a big deal. It's really a big deal. Qian auction house has taken out everything from the bottom of the box. Right. The audience at the scene spoke to each other, and their enthusiasm was completely mobilized by this 30,000-year-old soul bone. Regarding the reaction of the audience, Shen Yuan's lips curved with satisfaction. Everyone knows the value of the external soul bone, and this one is as high as 30,000. I won't say more. The value of this soul bone is the starting price is 500,000 gold soul coins, and each bid increase must not be less than 10,000 gold soul coins. As soon as he finished speaking, someone started to increase the price. 530,000, 550,000, 600,000. The scene suddenly became crazy. Those present were either high-level soul masters or heads of sects. They knew the role of soul bones very well, not to mention that they were the rarest external soul bones among soul bones. To put it bluntly, if they can get this externally attached soul bone, their strength can be increased by at least 10% to 20%. For a soul master of their level, 10% or 20% is a huge improvement. Therefore, the value of the 30,000-year-old soul bone can be imagined. 7 100,000, 700,000, 720,000. The price has been raised to 700,000 gold soul coins, and the price is still rising rapidly. The 30,000-year-old Xingyu Fox's external soul bone, in the private room of Wuhan Hall. When Bibi Dong heard the auction in her ears, she turned her head and looked at Ulina beside her, with a smile on her lips. Does Nana like this soul bone? I like it. Ulina nodded quickly, her bright eyes full of expectation. Then, my master will give it to you as a birthday gift. Bibi Dong chuckled and rubbed Hulina's little head point at the same time. The price below was still rising, and in the blink of an eye it had reached 800,000 gold soul coins. However, at this time, most of the casual cultivating soul masters had withdrawn from the bidding, and the remaining sect forces, large and small, continued to compete for the bidding point. Seeing Bibi Dong, who was reluctant to bid, Hulina couldn't sit still and said, "Master, aren't we going to participate in the bidding now?" Bibi Dong smiled calmly and shaved Hulina's nose. "Nana, don't be anxious. Wait a moment. Let those little fish and shrimps have enough trouble first, and then we take action to avoid wasting time." As the current Pope of Wuhan Palace, the largest force in Douluo continent, many of the forces present are not qualified to be taken seriously by her. The only ones he really cares about are the three factions of the Shangsun sect. 790,000 gold soul coins, 900,000 gold soul coins. When the time was almost up, the price quoted by Bibi Dong directly silenced all the voices. Although the 30,000-year-old external soul bone is a good thing, when it reaches the level of 700,000 taels, you have to seriously consider whether to continue fighting for it. 910,000. Not long after, someone broke the silence point. Seeing this, Bibi Dong said calmly, 950,000. The direct increase of 40,000 taels made the previous bidders fall silent again, because judging from the tone of Bibi Dong's bidding, it was obvious that 950,000 taels was not the limit point. And the most important thing is that the person calling the price is one of the three boxes at the top point, whether it is a 7 treasures glazed sect, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, or the Wuhan Palace. They cannot afford to offend any of these three forces. 960,000. At this moment, in the box of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, Yu Yuansun, who had never raised the price before, suddenly raised the price by 10,000 yuan again. Yu Yuanlin turned his head in confusion. Sect master, the sect leader wasn't interested in this soul bone just now, so why did he suddenly increase the price now? It's not that simple. If Wuhan Palace wants this soul bone. As he said that, Yu Yuanzin looked at the box of Wuhan Palace and smiled coldly. He was just raising the price on purpose. The normal price of this soul bone is around 950,000 at most. He just wanted Wuhan Palace to spend more soul coins. The character of Master Jade has really not changed at all. In the Kibao glazed sects box, Ning Fengzi smiled when he saw this scene. Although Sword Douluo didn't say anything, he shook his head. He did not approve of Yu Yuanzun's behavior. He would either not offend Wu Hundian, or he would strike with a thunderous blow. Such a small fight would be of no use. Wu Hundian private room. To Yu Yuanzun's provocation, Bibi Dong didn't respond at all, but simply quoted a new price, 101 million. Does you sect leader continue to increase the price? A gentleman never takes what others like. Since His Majesty the Pope likes it, I will do it as a favor to Wu Hundian. After a moment of silence, a hearty voice came from the opposite compartment. Thank you so much, Master Jade. As she said that, Bibi Dong had a purple light in her eyes. First time in 1,000,001 million. 1,000,001 million for the second time. 1,000,001 million for the third time. Deal done. Shen Yuan started counting down again. With the high price of 1.1 million gold soul coins, and Wuhan Palace personally taking action, no one present would raise an eyebrow and bid again. When the dust of the soul bone auction settled, Shen Yuan started a new round of bidding again. One precious item after another was sent to the auction stage. Chapter 83 Mysterious Scabbard. Ask for a monthly pass. At this time, the gap between Sanxiu Soul Master and Soul Master's Angman point except for the starting storage soul guides at the beginning. None of the next auctions were shot by the Sanxiu Soul Master. They were all taken down by the seizure forces, large and small. The following is the 21 lot today. Mysterious Scabbard. During the talk, Shen Yuan unveiled the red cloth on the tray, revealing the linup of the 21st lot. This is a sword sheath, which shows a dreamy ice blue as a whole. Casting the cold chills, exuding the cold chills all the time point. Although Shen Yuan does not know the specific origin of the scabbard, in accordance with the professional literacy of the auctioneer, he still fulfills its advantages. Don't underestimate this scabbard. It is particularly hard to face the title Douluo. Facing the title Douluo, it can be unscathed with a full blow. Mysterious Scabbard. The starting price of 10,000 gold and soul coins. Each price increase must not be less than 100 gold soul coins. Is there any use in this stuff? I feel it's useless. Although Shen Yuan's introduction sounds good. All soul masters here have heard the voice outside the string. There is no other advantage except for hardness. Although the soul master who can enter the auction room is not bad. This does not spend 10,000 gold and soul coins to buy a hard scrap iron point. Apocalypse point 2 interests info 10 interesting time passed. And no one had a bargain point for the first time in the auction room. No one had a plan to call point. Will you not want to shoot? Thinking of the expression of Shen Yuan's expression became a little unnatural. He began to regret why the scabbard was added to the auction form, and the high price of 10,000 gold soul coins had to be booked. Point the product streaming on the auction is a taboo for auctioneers. This is a major blow to the reputation of the auctioneer. An excellent auctioneer does not want the auction that he hosted, and there will be a product to be shot, because no one is caught. Never shoot when Shen Yuan prayed silently in the bottom of the heart point in the box of Kibabeo Liu Lizang. Seeing the spirit of the spirit has an inexplicable feeling. In Wuhan space, Bing Yanshang is shaking violently. Point it's as if the scabbard was originally a whole. Bing Yanshuangjian kept passing to himself. It was eager to combine with the scabbard. Lingtian. 1. The scabbard. It will greatly improve your martial arts. Guzai Oran's voice sounded quietly in Lingtian's heart, and his tone was also an abnormal seriousness. What does it have to do with me? Lingtian frowned slightly, and said with ripples in Xinhu, then I will explain to you, and take it down quickly, otherwise you will definitely regret it. Guzai Oran said solemnly. Lingtian hesitated for a moment, and finally obeyed Guzai Oran's suggestion. Point at this moment, the Ningfeng on the side saw the hesitation of Lingtian, and the macro movement between the fingers, adjusted the price to 10,000 gold and soul coins. 10,000, 10,000 times, twice, 10,000 times. When I heard that someone was in offer, Shen Yuan had a touch of surprise in the eyes of Shen Yuan, and then I didn't want to think about it. It was like the fastest speed of the offer to regret it. It ended the auction at the fastest speed of life. Point sold the lot. Point the later thing has nothing to do with him. Point all aspects of the collection are Xianyu anthology. No matter how much money can be sold in the end, as long as you don't leave a shot. Finally sold. Looking at the scabbard being lifted off, Shen Yuan wiped the sweat from his forehead and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Point he secretly decided in his heart, next time something like this happens, he will never let it come to power at the same time. In the Kibeo glazed sect box, thank you, Uncle Ning. Lingtian thanked him with his hands. According to the Golden Dragon King, this scabbard is indeed very important to him. Point Ningfeng's he just smiled indifferently. It's just 10,000 gold soul coins. If you like it, just buy it. 10,000 gold soul coins was a small amount in Ningfeng's eyes, and he had already promised to help Lingtian take pictures of his favorite items as time goes by. The auction process is coming to an end. Point after the penultimate lot was sold, Shen Yuan followed the maid off the stage, and was replaced by an older man. I am Li Yuan. I will host the last auction today. The old man's calm voice was like thunder on the ground, and the scene of the explosion was suddenly silent. Point the person hosting the auction turned out to be Li Yuan. Li Yuan, a 92 level titled Douluo, a top-notch weapon called the Thunder Saber, and a titled Thunder Saber Douluo. Point both the auction house and the spirit fighting arena are businesses that make money every day. Point if they want to hold on to such a big piece of fat. They must have strong people behind them, and this old man is one of the strong people in charge of the auction house today. It turned out to be His Majesty the Thunder Sword Crown. Your Majesty actually presided over the auction in person, with Your Majesty presiding over it. This last auction item will be anything but simple. After a brief shock, everyone began to speculate about the last auction item, and what kind of item it was, that a titled Douluo could personally host point at the same time. In the Kibao glazed sects box, Lingtian was also curious about Li Yuan's strength. Teacher, how strong is this Thunder Sword Crown? The strength is pretty good. Generally, titled Douluo is no match for him. He should be able to compete with old bones. Chen Zhenfeng commented calmly on Li Yuan's strength. In order to make it easier for Lingtian to understand, he also introduced measurement units, but he didn't know if he introduced Gurang into it intentionally. How does it compare with the teacher? Lingtian asked even more curiously. Of course you are not my opponent. It seemed that it was because of joining Gurang that Chen Xin's tone was somewhat proud. Ning Fengzi turned his head and smiled calmly. Xiaoshan, your master is the titled Douluo who is known as the strongest attacker. There are only a handful of people on the mainland who can surpass your master in combat power. While everyone was talking about it, Li Yuan had already opened the last wooden box, revealing 3 white tokens engraved with the orange word kill inside. Chapter 84 UYUANZHEN-039 S Provocation asks for a monthly ticket. I don't need to say more about the value of the orange killing order from Lingxue Palace. Li Yuan pushed the wooden box and turned it around, revealing the 3 tokens inside. He paused and said in a calm voice, this auction will be divided into 3 times, and 1 token will be auctioned at one time. The bidding for the first orange killing order starts now. The low price is 1 million gold soul coins. Each increase in price shall not be less than 10,000 gold soul coins. The voice fell. The few sect forces that had previously maintained a wait and see attitude could no longer sit still and started to participate in the auction. Although they realized that it was difficult for them to get a shot from the big sects, they still wanted to give it a try. 1 million and 1 million gold soul coins. 1,900,000 gold soul coins. 2 million gold soul coins. 2.5 million gold soul coins. 4.5 million gold soul coins. The price kept rising and soon reached 8 million. At this time, more than 90% of the sects have been eliminated, and the only ones who can still afford to raise prices are the 7 Treasures Glazed sect, the Blue Lightning Overlord Dragon sect, and the Wuhan Palace, the 3 largest forces in the Douluo continent. 9 million. Ning Fengzi once again directly increased the price by 1 million, raising the price to a new level. Master Jade, Your Highness the Pope, there are 3 tokens in this auction. As long as you don't compete with Ning for this token, Ning does not need to participate in the bidding for the remaining 2 tokens. Ning Fengzi expressed his intention immediately to avoid being targeted by both forces at the same time. The Kibao glazed sect only wants 1 token this time. As long as Bibidong and Yu Yuansen don't raise the price, Ning Fengzi will automatically give up the competition for the remaining 2 tokens. But it also expresses another meaning point. If the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect and Wuhan Palace insist on clinging to one another, then what Ning Fengzi wants is not just 1 token. With the financial resources of the Kibao glazed sect, it is possible to acquire 3 tokens, and even if they don't get the shot, they will pay more to get the token. Therefore, Ning Fengzi voluntarily withdraws from the next competition, which is good news for Bibidong and Yu Yuansen. Yu Yuansen's eyes flickered, and he said loudly, since Sect Master Ning has spoken, I will give up this token. Yes. Bibidong's red lips parted slightly, and she also agreed to Ning Fengzi's request. Normally, the auction does not allow private negotiation and communication between guests, but Ning Fengzi and others have extraordinary identities, and even a titled Douluo would not dare to offend them easily. Therefore, even if Li Yuan is the host, he can only ignore the communication between the 3 people. 9 million gold soul coins once. 9 million gold soul coins twice. 9 million gold soul coins 3 times. Deal done. Snap. As The auction hammer fell. The first orange killing order was successfully pocketed by the Kibao glazed sect for a price of 9 million gold soul coins. Got it? A smile appeared in Ning Feng's eyes. Although 9 million gold soul coins were a lot, he finally achieved his goal and won the token. Li Yuan looked around at the crowd, took out the second token, and said calmly, "The auction for the second orange kill token has begun, with a starting price of 1 million gold soul coins." He is not worried whether this time will be like the first time, selling only 9 million gold soul coins, because the second and third tokens are the highlight of this auction. Sure enough, Li Yuan had just finished speaking. Bibi Dong directly raised the price to 9 million, a 9-fold increase in price, blocking all the sects who wanted to bid and participate. 9 million times, twice, 9 million, 10 million, just. When Li Yuan gang was about to swing the auction hammer, Yu Yuanzhen spoke again and added another 10 million, and at the same time said cheerfully, "I happen to want this token too. I wonder if His Majesty the Pope can give it to me." Yu Yuanzhen hesitated again and again, but still didn't want to give it to Bibi Dong. Although 9 million was their unspoken agreement, he was worried about Bibi Dong. If she broke the agreement and continued to compete after getting the token, he would have no choice at all. Therefore, Yu Yuanzhen wanted to win the second token first and take the dominant position first. 11 million. Bibi Dong's red lips opened slightly, and a faint voice came out, "The one with the highest price will get it. Since the Jade Sect Master wants it, then the price should be as high as possible." At the same time, a faint purple light flashed across his eyes. "His Majesty the Pope is right." Yu Yuanzhen in the box picked up the teacup and took a sip with an inexplicable smile on his face. 12 million, 13 million, 14 million, 15 million. Bibi Dong and Yu Yuanzhen are really competing with each other. As the two of them continue to increase the price keeps rising, and it is about to reach a high price of 20 million, 18 million. Listening to the rising price, Lingtian couldn't help but smacked his lips and sighed. In just a short time, it has increased by 9 million. This price should not rise again, right? I think we need to add at least 1 million more. Ning Fengzi shook his head and said firmly, we'll see." After a short silence, there was another quote, 20 million. As Ning Fengzi expected, Bibi Dong offered a high price of 20 million. It is also her final bottom line point. Although Wuhan Palace is spread across the entire continent, the annual financial expenditure is also a lot. In addition, her empire plan also requires money, so the price of 20 million is already her limit. As 20 million shouted out, the whole place was in an uproar. No one expected that the second orange killing order would fetch such a high price. At this moment, Yu Yuanzhen was already riding a tiger, unable to live up to his previous calmness. His expression was gloomy, and he was wondering whether he should continue to increase the price, give up, or continue. If he gives up this token now, revenge will definitely come for Bibi Dong, who took the last token, and the price he will have to pay by then may be more than the current 20 million. But if it continues, the high price of 20 million will be a big burden on the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect. At this moment, Yu Yuanzhen was in a dilemma. 20 million times, 20 million times. Li Yuan paused for a moment and glanced expectantly in the direction of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex. 20 million, 3 times. Deal. Snap. The auction hammer has struck again. The second token was finally purchased by Wuhan Palace for a high price of 20 million. In the second round of recommendations, please continue to support me. Xianayu is here to ask for recommendations, monthly tickets and rewards. As long as this round of recommendations can advance, it will be put on the shelves, and it will be popular for everyone. I will post it as proof. Chapter 85: The Scabbard Mutation. Congratulations to His Majesty the Pope for successfully bidding on the second token. Li Yuan bowed and said, with a smile in his eyes, obviously very satisfied with the price just now. Then Li Yuan took a deep look at the Thunder Tyrant Dragon Sect and said meaningfully, "Next is the last orange killing order. You must seize the opportunity. The starting price is still 1 million gold soul coins. The auction begins now." Yu Yuanzhen was the first to bid. 10 million, 15 million, but Bibi Dong, who had just spent 11 million more, naturally would not let Yu Yuanzhen go, and directly increased the price by 5 million. Yu Yuanzhen gritted his teeth. 16 million. As soon as he finished speaking, another calm voice sounded again. 20 million, 21 million, 23 million. In the end, with Bibi Dong's help, Yu Yuanzhen gritted his teeth and won the last orange killing order at a high price of 26 million. Until the end of the auction, Li Yuan was smiling throughout the process. It was obvious that he was very satisfied with the auction. After a while, an attendant from Qian auction house came to the Kibao glazed sect box. Sect Master Ning, this is what you just took a picture of. As he spoke, the attendant placed a space ring in front of Ning Fengzi. After checking that everything was correct, the attendant slowly left the room. Xiaoshan, this is yours. Ning Fengzi thought, took out the scabbard, and handed it to Lingtian. Thank you, Uncle Ning. With that said, Lingtian stretched out his hand to take the scabbard. Clang. The moment he touched the scabbard, a strong feeling came from Wuhan, and at the same time, the scabbard shook violently, as if in response to the Bingji Frost sword. Buzz. The sheath shook more and more, and suddenly broke free from Lingtian's shackles. A sheath that was originally strong enough to withstand title Douluo actually disintegrated, and turned into dots of blue dots, which finally converged into a blue light and poured into Lingtian's eyebrows. When the scabbard entered the body, Wuhan regained his composure again. But everything just happened in a flash of lightning. In the eyes of Ning Fengzi and Shenzhen, they just saw the scene of the scabbard suddenly disappearing. So they just thought that Lingtian had put away the scabbard. Before Lingtian could investigate carefully, Ning Fengzi's gentle voice came into his ears. Xiaoshan, it happens that the direction of Kibao glazed sect and Qian Dou city are also on the way. Why don't you go back with us? Okay. Lingtian, who had just regained consciousness, nodded. He chose to stay in Qian city before for a safe period. Now he returns to Qian Dou city with Ning Fengzi. With the protection of Shenzhen and the masters of the sect, he is naturally safer than if he were alone. Okay, let's set off now without further ado. Ning Fengzi smiled and nodded. A moment later, it was on the jungle outskirts of Qian city. The Kibao glazed sect's convoy has been waiting here for a long time. Xiaoshan, you and I are riding in the same carriage. As he said that, Ning Fengzi led Lingtian to a gorgeously decorated carriage. Lingtian looked at Shenzhen, who was standing aside, and said doubtfully, Uncle Ning, isn't teacher with us? Uncle Jian will be up there to guard the surrounding area and be responsible for protecting our safety. Ning Fengzi smiled lightly and explained the reason to Lingtian. Lingtian nodded and followed Ning Fengzi into the carriage. Set off. Following Shenzhen's order, the Kibao glazed sect's convoy began to set off. There is a lot of space inside the carriage. In addition to the normal seats, there is also a table. Although two people were riding in the same carriage, the space inside was still very open. Even if there were 4 or 5 more people, it would not feel crowded. At this moment, Lingtian and Ning Fengzi were sitting on the left and right sides of the table respectively. After chatting for a while, Ning Fengzi put down the teacup, looked at Lingtian, and said with a smile, Xiaoshan, Uncle Ning has something that I want to ask your opinion on. Please tell me about Uncle Ning. Lingtian sat upright and said seriously. Ning Fengzi nodded with satisfaction and said, Xiaoshan, what do you think of Rangrong? Senior sister Rangrong is pretty good. Lingtian pondered for a moment and said softly, although her personality is a bit arrogant, she has also changed a lot during this time. With her talent and Uncle Ning's teachings, she will definitely become a qualified heir to the sect in the future. But I can leave Rangrong to you with peace of mind. Ning Fengzi happily patted Lingtian on the shoulder, as if his father-in-law was becoming more and more pleased with his son-in-law. Lingtian was stunned for a moment, and just when he was about to say something, Ning Fengzi's elegant voice sounded again. Xiaoshan, find a time in a few days to arrange the marriage between you and Rangrong. Wait a minute. Before he could finish speaking, Lingtian's eyes suddenly widened, and he looked at Ning Fengzi in disbelief. Uncle Ning, do you want me and senior sister Rangrong to get engaged? Ning Fengzi smiled lightly and nodded. You and Rangrong are similar in age. We grew up together and have a strong relationship. King and I both think this marriage is very suitable. Marriage. Lingtian looked at Ningfengzi in disbelief. It seemed that they had never mentioned anything like engagement before. Why did Ningfengzi suddenly change the topic to love? And he clearly remembered that he had never agreed at all. So why did Ningfengzi just take it upon himself to decide on her marriage to Ningrangrong? Just when Lingtian was at a loss, Ningfengzi's gentle voice came again. Xiaoshan, I've already discussed it with King. If you don't have any objections, we will decide on the marriage first, when Rangrang comes back in a few days. As for when to get married, it depends on the two of you. After saying that, Ningfengzi waited expectantly for Lingtian's reply. The ultimate sword spirit and the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda are completely replicas of sword Douluo and himself. If these two children can really get together, then Ningfengzi will no longer need to worry about how to keep the Kibao glazed sect after 100 years. In the second round of recommendations, please continue to support me. Xianayu is here to ask for recommendations, monthly tickets and rewards. As long as this round of recommendations can advance, it will be put on the shelves, and it will be popular for everyone. I will post it as proof. Open bracket question mark question mark question mark question mark closed bracket question mark. Chapter 86 asking for a monthly ticket in the courtroom. And ZHINUMORUO, Ningfengzi knows her daughter very well. Rangrang is proud of this girl, and she is even more arrogant in Zangmen on weekdays. But the little princess who was so arrogant, and not afraid of it, but could patiently obey Lingtian's suggestion, and even willing to make changes for him. She thought carefully. Ningfengzi had long seen a clear look. Otherwise, you will never ask Ningrangrang's opinions anymore. And you will do the claim to find the Zuking River, to mention the mature point, although Ningfeng wants to let Zangmen grow. But in the final analysis, he is still a father. On the premise of ensuring the ancestors, he still wants to try to make Ningrangsheng real happiness. Otherwise, he will not give Oscar a chance in the original work. Lingtian raised his head and said seriously, Uncle Ning, I don't think this family relationship. Ningfeng's face changed, and his eyes were sharp. Why do you not like Rangrang, sister? Rangrang is very good. Lingtian paused, looking straight at Ningfeng's gaze, and said seriously, but I have always regarded sister Rangrang as a relative, just like you. And the teacher agree, although this is said, it will cause the uncomfortable unhappy but like it is to like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If you don't accept it, you don't refuse. He doesn't want to find a spare tire for himself, let alone play with the feelings of others. If Ningfeng was given an ambiguous answer, only Ningrangrang would be hurt in the end, and Lingtian didn't want to do so. Ningfeng was silent for a long time. Tao, little sky, uncle, Ning, please forgive me, but didn't wait for him to finish. Lingtian bowed deeply, and then raised his head, and the right way. Lingtian knows that doing this may brush Uncle Ning's face, but I don't want to deceive you. I like this kind of thing like I like. I don't like it. I don't like it. I forcibly bundle two people who don't love each other together. In the end, only countless injuries are obtained. So, don't you like Rangrang? Yes, Lingtian nodded firmly, and said seriously, Lingtian has never liked sister Rangrang from beginning to end. It's me, Ning. Fengzi was silent for a long time, and no more sighing. Qian Dou City. At the beginning of the rising sun, the sky was getting bright. The morning light broke the clouds. According to the first ray of golden sunlight. The light wheels wandered with the clouds, and sprinkled all corners of the imperial city. The morning light is irradiated with the Panlong pillar on both sides of the Emperor Polar Temple, and the golden dragon engraved with. The golden dragon is even more golden, adding a bit of majestic momentum. On the large square steps, Jia Shilin stands, with a knife to hold the halberd, guarding the entire emperor's temple. And the cultural and military officials of the Qiandao Empire are standing in the square in a group of 3 or 5, waiting quietly for the upcoming Cheohu, Shang, dynasty. Finally, the familiar sharp voice broke a slice of silence. The cultural and military officials went to the steps in turn, and entered the gate of the Huangju temple. according to the sorting of the hall, stood silently in their respective positions. They were holding their own players in their hands, waiting for the snowy emperor to come out of the curtain. Step on stepping. The footsteps are getting closer and closer. 100 officials are looking forward to the arrival of His Majesty, His Royal Highness. To the prince, the sharp voice sounded in a timely manner, but it turned from the familiar His Majesty to the His Royal Highness. At the same time, wearing a bright yellow robe, Qian Renxue. He slowly walked out from behind the curtain. His face was solemn, and his hands were behind him. Although you were young, he had a little majesty between the Emperor. Qian kept in mind Zuai's instructions, and stood beside Qian Renxue, as if she stood on the right side of her, on the right side of Zuai. His Royal Highness, on the hall. When Wu Bei officials looked up at the same time, watching Qian Renxue standing on the hall and out. Last night, the incident suddenly, and the cultural and military officials in the court did not receive the snowy emperor, and appointed the prince to be responsible for supervising the country's governance. However, despite this, everyone in the court still keeps silent. Because they don't need to speak. Someone will not be afraid of the princess identity in the court, and ask why the people of the upper dynasty have changed from His Majesty to His Royal Highness. Sure enough, someone jumped out soon. The Zuxing standing in the first row span a step, regardless of the prince's face. The generosity of the prince, king, that's the position of your majesty. Even if you are the prince, you can't stand there. Don't hurry up. It sounds like Qian Renxue is good, but if you think about it carefully, you will jump out and point to Qian Renxue, saying whether your kid is going to usurp the throne. The courtiers were also trembling, and their eyes were squinting. Uncle Huang, don't be irritable. Hearing Zhu Crossing's questioning, Qian Renxue smiled indifferently, glanced at him, and then leisurely, Qian, in front of you, read the will of his father and emperor. Promise. Qian bowed to the way, and then spread out the decree of Zuai. The emperor of the Tian Dou Empire, the snowy knight of the emperor of the empire, made Wuzi King River, and supervised the country as a prince today. Everything in China, regardless of military and political, etc., now it is handled by the prince. Do not delay, the offenders cut. After speaking, Qian closed the imperial decree again, and retreated to Qian Snow. Qian Renxue stands on the right side of the throne, looking around the ministers below, open, and said, everyone is now. There are objections. His Royal Highness Chitos, since it is His Majesty's will, these ministers no longer think about it. Following the officials of the prince's mansion, they kneel on the ground, and ask His Royal Highness, everyone is flat. Qian Renxue smiled indifferently. At the same time, Zuxing among the ministers is standing in place at this moment. Qian Renxue's eyes halfway. Uncle Emperor, Zhu Crossing was shocked and shouted subconsciously, Your Majesty, how will it make you supervise the country? It seems that the emperor seems to be the authenticity of this imperial decree. Qian Renxue's mouth raised a touch of funny smile, raised his hand, said, Qian, since the emperor does not believe it, let's show it to Uncle Huang. Chapter 87 Stand out. Ask for a monthly ticket. Promise. Key. Lin cupped his hands, walked to Zuxing, and handed over the imperial edict. Zhu Crossing is extremely familiar with Zhu Yi's handwriting. As soon as he saw it, he was sure that this was indeed the imperial edict written by Zhu Yi himself. But this is unreasonable. Why did the imperial brother let Zhu King supervise the country without any warning, and without consulting anyone? Not even his only brother knew. Your Majesty, what exactly is he going to do? Uncle Emperor, do you still have any questions now? Qian Renxue put her hands behind her back and measured herself, looking at Zhu Crossing with an indifferent expression. King, you are too worried. As the crown prince of Tian Dou, it is your duty to supervise the country. Zhu Crossing smiled, laughed, and retreated to the courtiers. Qian Renxue smiled indifferently, and looked around at everyone. Now, is there anyone still suspicious? I have no objection, the court ministers said in unison, bowing and responding. Qian Renxue waved her hand, took a deep look at Zhu Crossing, raised her chin and said calmly, then we will start going to court. I remember that Li Cheng presented a document a few days ago. My father died because of his illness. After the delay, today I will take charge of the government for my father. So let's start with your suggestion, Li Cheng. Promise, Prime Minister Li narrowed his eyes and glanced at Zuxing sympathetically. He is a close confidant of the prince's mansion. Now that the prince mentioned the discount, he immediately understood what Zuxing meant. He was going to use the crossing for surgery, because the entire excerpt has only one theme, impeachment of Snowstar. It contains all the crimes Zuxing has committed over the years from beginning to end, and everything is clearly recorded down to the smallest detail point. It is precisely because of this that he was detained by His Majesty. And His Highness the Crown Prince has just taken power today, so he wants to bring up the past and attack Zuxing again. It should be said that he is worthy of being the legitimate son valued by His Majesty. With his courage and skill, you really have a bit of His Majesty's youthful demeanor. Prime Minister Li was filled with emotions. If the empire was really handed over to the Crown Prince, the Qian Dou Empire would usher in the next century of prosperity. And this was also the reason why he stood unswervingly on Qian Renxue's side. After a moment of pause, Prime Minister Li stepped out of the queue, holding the memorial in both hands, and said loudly, "Your Highness, I want to impeach Prince Zuxing." Prime Minister Li needs to think carefully. Prince Seolsung is my royal uncle. If Prime Minister Li's impeachment is without basis, the crime of falsely accusing a prince of the royal family is not light. Although the word sounded like a warning to Prime Minister Li, the smile in Qian Renxue's eyes was not hidden at all. "If I have exaggerated, I'm willing to be punished by your Highness." Prime Minister Li bowed and held his hands in his hands, and said solemnly. As soon as he heard that the matter concerned him, Zuxing quickly walked out of the queue, glared at Li Lin, and retorted loudly, "Li Lingxiu wants to talk nonsense in front of His Highness. I have always been honest. You know your own affairs best." Although Zuxing didn't know how Li Lin was going to impeach him, he instinctively felt that he must not let Li Lin speak, otherwise the court today would not end well. Li Lin did not show any weakness, and glared back at Zuxing. "Your Highness, the prince is so eager. Could it be because he is afraid of me?" "Afraid? Will this king be afraid of you? Since you are not afraid, why don't you let me finish my story? Or do you think that His Highness the Prince has some ulterior secret? I am not wrong in the first place. Why should I listen to your false accusations? Whether it is a false accusation or not, I have to wait for your Highness to find out the truth." Li Lin, enough. After Qian Renxue said these words, her temper suddenly changed, and she looked at the two of them calmly. "Your Highness, this king, uncle, who unresisted Prime Minister Li's memorial so much. Could it be that he was afraid?" Seeing Zuxing hesitate to speak, Qian Renxue raised a sneer on her lips. "Official, of course. I'm not afraid." Zuxing stiffened her neck and said forcefully, "Then let Prime Minister Li think about it." Saying that, Qian Renxue turned her head and stared straight at Zuxing with her deep eyes. Please, this time just proves the innocence of the Emperor's uncle and prevents anyone from slandering the Emperor's uncle over this matter in the future." "Uncle, Emperor, what do you think?" "It all depends on His Highness." Zuxing's retreat was blocked by Qian Renxue, so he could only retreat into the queue with a grimace. Qian Renxue said calmly, "Li Cheng, let's get started." Promise. Li Lin straightened his clothes and walked to the center of the 100 officials. After bowing to Qian Renxue, he said loudly, "Today I will impeach Prince Zuxing for 5 major crimes. As a child of the royal family, he does not seek his position in his position. Ever since Prince Zuxing took charge of the Qian Dou Royal Academy, he has misunderstood and misunderstood people, which has led to a tainted atmosphere in the academy over the past few years, with powerful disciples running rampant and tyrannizing and ostracizing outstanding students who are truly pursuing their studies." Immediately afterwards, Li Lin criticized Zuxing's crimes from 5 aspects: greed for money, lust, greed for power, and abuse of power. The words were sharp and shocking, and every sentence was heartbreaking, and every word was fatal. Every word Li Lin spoke struck a chord with Zuxing's greatest pain in his life. "It's over. It's all over." The accusations made Zuxing's face turn pale and her lips kept trembling. "I should have thought of it a long time ago. Zuxing will definitely not let him go after gaining power this time. But he couldn't wait to jump out just now." For fear that Zuking would ignore him. At this moment, he finally understood Zuking's intention. The prince's foundation in pro-government was still shallow, and in order to deter the courtiers as quickly as possible, he wanted to use himself, the prince with whom he had the worst relationship, to establish his power. Now he understood everything. These were all instructed by Zuking. If not, how could Lilin, a prime minister, dare to impeach the current prince? Pat. As Lilin counted each crime in detail, Zuxing tried his best to maintain his remaining dignity, but the beads of sweat falling on his forehead betrayed his inner panic. Snow on the King River is not a snowy night. Zuking, who is as powerful as fire and water, will definitely not care about brotherhood like Zuyi, so he will definitely not feel good if he seizes the opportunity this time. I can guarantee with my life that the charges listed above are true. Finally, Lilin handed the thick memorial to the palace attendant in charge of delivering it, bowed deeply to Qian Renxue, and then returned to the crowd of officials again. Snap. Qian Renxue flipped through the pages for a moment, then closed the thick memorial. She slowly raised her head, half closed her eyes, and said in a cold voice without any warmth, "Uncle Li, don't you want to explain to King the charges against him?" Chapter 88 Removal of Zoo Crossing. Ask for a monthly ticket. Temple Zoo. Crossing opened her mouth, but she could not justify it. It can only be drooping the forehead, stood silently in place. Oh, Qian. Zuxu looked down at Zuxing and said blankly, "Uncle Huang has nothing to say." Zuxing is still silent. "You are really a good emperor in the palace." Thousands of Snow, which had a calm attitude, was angry with Zuxing's attitude. She suddenly got up and smashed the throw in anger. Feng's eyes looked at Zuxing angrily and said, "Father Emperor trusts you so much and then gives you the Royal College of Qian Dou. The imperial military and political power are giving you management, but do you return the trust of the father and the emperor's trust? Why does the Heavenly Dou Royal College Walker manage the stop? Why is the local disobeying fundamental? Is it necessary for the victims or the Star Luojun hit the imperial city?" Qian. Zuxu thrown out one after another with sharp problems. Although some exaggerated facts, they were all reasonable. After a moment of pause, Qian Zuxu stared at Zuxing coldly. "Zuxing, this palace explained your need to need you." Chen, guilty. Zuxing confessed his crime as soon as he spoke. Because she knew that this was everything led by Qian Zuxu, then how he was arguing is useless. All the Snow Stars were directly guilty of the charges anyway. He has the identity of the royal family, and it is impossible for Qian Zuxu to kill him. "Uncle, the prince offending the law, what sin should be?" Qian. Zuxu turned around and looked at the old man who had been sitting in the corner of the court. He was the most special in the masters and could have a place in the court. As for why there is a place, it is because of his special identity. The old man is named Zichen, the king of Chen of the Empire of the Heavenly Dou. He was Zuai's uncle. When he was not up in Zuai, he stood firmly in Zuai and called him the emperor. Therefore, it is the only royal child of the Heavenly Empire, the only royal child who was sealed. Later, because of the increasing age, he withdrew from the court and began to turn behind the scenes to deal with the problem of dealing with the royal family. With the stick, Zuchen stood up slowly, watching the prince who was already the majestic emperor, and sighed. The king's age is high, the unintentional rights are struggling. It is not easy to reach this point today. It is not easy. In recent years, the royal family has enough bleeding. The king does not want to see the same room in the same room. Although Zuchen is old, he is not confused. In the court, the Prince Party and Prince Party, he knew the staff of the two factions. Although Li Lin was a prime minister, if there was no instructions of Qian Zuxu, he would never stand up and accuse Zuxing's crime. In all fairness, Zuchen appreciates Qian Zuxu. Decisive, fierce. This is the quality that the qualified emperor should have. He is relieved to hand over the heavenly fighting empire to Qian Yixu. But appreciation and appreciation. He didn't want to see the royal family disabled anymore. When Zuai was called the emperor, the royal family had a heavy death and injury. Except for the supporters of Zuxing, the other princes were either to be executed or were mixed into the wild belt. When he was old, he didn't want to happen in these tragedies. Uncle, I don't want to. Qian. Zuxu also understood Zuchen's thoughts and shook his head and sighed. It's just that the emperor is too much. If it is not severely punished, the royal family may be a majestic sweeping the ground. Zhu Chen sighed, put his crutch heavily on his feet, and said slowly, no matter how you deal with Zhu Crossing, King, I have only one request, don't let the royal family bleed anymore. King is just managing the government for my father. How to deal with the emperor's uncle still needs to be decided by the father himself. After receiving Zuchen's acquiescence, Qian Renxue smiled indifferently, but then changed the topic and showed a look of embarrassment. But the emperor's uncle has made such a big mistake. It will be difficult to convince the public if he is not punished. I propose that Zuxing be removed from all positions and handed over to the crown prince for the time being. Zhu Chen sighed and immediately removed Zuxing to the end. Removing all positions, all he needs is that he still retains his identity as an imperial uncle. Do you have any objections to my uncle's judgment? Qian Renxue stood with her hands behind her hands, standing in front of the throne and looking around at everyone. The majesty of the emperor arose spontaneously. She has quite a bit of the queen's aura of guiding the country and scolding. Thank you, my lord, I have no objection. Even King Chen is on the side of the prince, and no one in the court dares to oppose him. The princeling ministers looked excited at this moment. They had always been suppressed by the princelings in the past, and with Qian Renxue taking power, they were finally able to sweep away their decline. The ministers of the royal party are all in danger, fearing that the next target of Qian Renxue's sword will be them. Uncle Huang is getting older, so he needs to rest for a while. As she said that, Qian Renxue smiled and tilted her head, and her tone suddenly changed. From tomorrow onwards, if there are no special circumstances, you won't have to bother coming to the palace to order the meal in the morning. Taking Zhu Crossing out of the court is Qian Renxue's ultimate goal. This time was Zhu Yi's test of her ability. Although it was a bit reckless to attack Zhu Crossing, the majesty of the emperor cannot be provoked. She is the embodiment of an emperor. Otherwise, how could Zhu Yi trust the country in his own hands if he was questioned casually by his subordinates and lacked the majesty of the emperor? Qian Renxue continued, Meng Shenji, Bei Ocean, Zilin, I'm here. The three people's hearts were filled with excitement, and they took a step across and bowed in salute. Qian Renxue said sternly, from today on, the three of you will be fully responsible for everything in Qian Dou Royal Academy. No matter what method is used, within 3 months, you can rectify the atmosphere in the academy. Promise. The three of them looked at each other and nodded solemnly. Prince Snouster interfered before. Although they hated the phenomenon in the academy, they were powerless and could only watch the corruption in the academy day after day. And now Zuxing has been deposed. Qian Renxue gave them enough power. Although they only had 3 months, the three of them were still confident in changing all the bad habits in the academy. Who still has a script to write? Qian Renxue looked around the crowd and asked calmly. After experiencing the establishment of authority just now, no one in the court now dares to look down upon this prince, who is usually friendly to others. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. In the next 2 days, Qian Renxue continued to deal with government affairs, but contrary to the expectations of the ministers in the court, except for Prince Zuxing, none of the other ministers of the prince family, Qian Renxue, dealt with it. Apart from the absence of Snowstar, there were no other changes in the entire court. Because Prince Zuxing was deposed, the royal courtiers who were in panic took advantage of the past 2 days, and many people began to waver and expressed that they wanted to join the prince's lineage. After absorbing some courtiers from the princeling party, the princeling party's team grew stronger. The two parties, which were originally evenly matched, gradually evolved into one party dominating the party. At the same time, the palace of Huangji Palace, Your Majesty, this is what His Royal Highness has been doing in the court these days. Keelan knelt on one knee in front of Zhu Yi and respectfully reported Qian Renxue's situation. Ha ha ha, not bad, Zhu. Yi, who was on the bed, laughed loudly and said, as expected of my son, although his methods are still a bit immature, it's good to be able to do this. Zhu. Yi is generally very satisfied with Qian Renxue's handling point, especially in establishing prestige in the court point first. He took advantage of Zhu Yi's momentum to suppress Zhu Crossing's arrogance point, then he used King Chen's words to depose Zhu Xing point. Finally, Qian Renxue personally took action to completely drive Zhu Xing out of the court, and thus recruited the ministers of the royal party. The entire plan was interconnected, completely removing the obstacles in the court, and completely taking control of the court without any bloodshed point. Although he attacked Zhu Xing immediately, he seemed to be unable to keep his composure, but he showed the majesty of an emperor. After so many years, I have grown old. Zhu Yi slowly sat up from the couch, and looked at her old self in the mirror, with a bitter smile on her lips. In the past, she was still a young man in bright clothes and angry horses, but today he is lying on the bed, and riddled with illness. He didn't lose to anyone, but he lost to time. Zhu Yi sighed and said, Qilin, how long have you and I known each other? Your Majesty, it has been 24 years. Qilin leaned beside the bed and responded softly, 24. Yes, you still remember clearly. I have become a bad old man, and I can hardly remember what I was like when I was young. Zhu Yi smiled lightly as he said that point. Qilin stood up, saluted, and said with great care, Your Majesty's kindness back then will be unforgettable for me. Zhu Yi patted Qilin on the shoulder and said, Qilin, I want to ask you something. This life is given by your Majesty. If you need anything, please give me your orders. Qilin raised his head and spoke sternly, Protect King. Zhu Yi said in a deep voice, King is my chosen successor. Nothing can happen to him. You are the last insurance I leave to the prince. I must protect his safety. Zhu Yi stood up with a sparkle in his eyes and said slowly, The future of the Qian Dou Empire belongs to King. I can die, and so can other princes, but he cannot have any accidents. As long as I'm still here, I will ensure that the prince is fine. Qilin clasped his fists together. His tone was calm but extremely firm, and a sense of trust arose spontaneously. With you here, I can rest assured. Zhu Yi walked up to Qilin, patted his shoulder gently, and said, I'll leave it to you in King. You are the only one I trust the most right now. Your Majesty, please take care of the dragon body. Qilin solemnly cupped his hands and disappeared in front of Zhu Yi in a flash. There was only a soul power left in the palace that was not weaker than a titled Douluo. Qilin's 93rd level titled Douluo, Wuhan Ghost Jiao Yanteng point at the same time, in the study room of the prince's mansion. I didn't expect that there would be a titled Douluo hidden in the Qian Dou royal family. Looking at the information obtained by Shilong's investigation, Qian Renxue's eyes flashed with surprise point. But it's not surprising, if you think about it carefully. Point the Qian Dou Empire is one of the two great empires after all, so how could it not be able to cultivate a titled Douluo? Your Highness, do you need us to kill him? Long put his hands in front of his neck and made a get rid of gesture, his eyes full of cruelty and gloom. Point. Although Qilin is also a titled Douluo, there is still a chance for him to join forces with the heir to defeat Qilin 2-on-1. Don't act rashly yet. Qian Renxue shook her head. Now that he is with me, if we take action now, we will definitely alert the enemy. If it affects the plan, the gain will outweigh the loss also. If there is no emergency in the future, try not to show up in the prince's mansion. It will be difficult for you to hide it from each other, since they are both titled Douluo. But for your safety, your highness. Shilong had a look of embarrassment in his eyes. Qian Renxue put her hands behind her back and smiled calmly. Don't worry, Qilin doesn't dare to neglect my safety. With him protecting me, it will be easier for you to attack Zhu Yi. She had already guessed Zhu Yi's thoughts. Qilin has a special status in the Qian Dou royal family. Since Zhu Yi sent him to protect him, he must have made up his mind to pass it on to himself. Point. Now that he has taken the initiative to photograph Qilin, the task of monitoring Zhu Yi will be easier to carry out. That's it for now. Qilin should be back soon. With that said, Qian Renxue blew out the candle, slowly left the secret room, and closed the secret door again. I understand. She long gave a final salute and slowly disappeared into the secret room, but there was no sign of any movement on the doors or windows inside the room. Because when masters leave, they usually don't leave. Time flies so fast. Qian Renxue walked out of the secret room and walked to the window. A pair of catkins were placed on the window, raised his chin, looked into the distance with his deep beautiful eyes, and murmured in a low voice, "Isn't it time for Xiaoshan to arrive in Qian Dou city?" At the mention of Lingtian, Qian Renxue was full of expectations, and joyful emotions echoed in her heart. Her brother is indeed the best. Even saw Douluo, who has a very high vision, was full of praise for her Xiaoshan. Thinking of this, Qian Renxue's lips curved into a pleasant smile, but then a hint of resentment appeared in her eyes. Because my younger brother is too good and has troubles. Didn't she just show her prowess? And she was targeted by the old fox Lingtian. If she hadn't dealt with it tactfully, the wedding would have been held this time. When she came back, how old is the little genius to get engaged to him? Chapter 90. Brother, sister, I want them all. I'm not ashamed. Qian Renxue criticized Lingtian secretly in her heart, and at the same time secretly made up her mind that she would never let the old fox come into contact with Xiaoshan again. She should be the one to get engaged. Anyone who is engaged or not is all Lingtian's fault. We must definitely reduce contact in the future, otherwise Xiaoshan will be stolen by the old fox sooner or later. Even the Cabello glazed sect, if you can, don't come into contact. Dusty heart. Ningran. No matter who it is, don't try to snatch the little one away from her. The little one is hers, and will always be hers. It might be the moment when he was taken out of Wuhan Palace, or it might be that night in the frozen forest, or it might be the days and nights spent together, or it might be the 4 years of separation. Anyway, Lingtian's figure has been engraved in Qian Renxue's heart. Qian Renxue suddenly pouted, showing the posture of a little girl, and murmured in a low voice, "Xiaoshan, it's really disturbing. Alas, after all, brother Xiaoshan is too good. If she could be a little more ordinary, she wouldn't attract the attention of those guys, and her brother would always belong to her." Qian Renxue had some resentment, but it was quickly swept away. Because Xiaoshan is coming back soon. Finally, I can see the little guy again. Thinking of Xiaoshan's handsome face, the tips of Qian Renxue's ears couldn't help but turn slightly red. A trace of joy rippled in his heart, and a sweet smile appeared between his eyebrows. If she long saw Qian Renxue now, his jaw would probably drop. Right, the sincere smile and friendship belong only to Lingtian. Qian Renxue soon put away this expression, because she was now the crown prince of the Qian Dou royal family, and was in the whirlpool at the center of power. She had to be cautious at all times to maintain Zhu Qing's character, but it won't be long. When Zhu Yi succeeds in passing the throne to her, she will no longer have to wear the mask of Zhu Qing and be cautious day after day while walking on thin ice, and she can truly be Qian Renxue. She once felt that it didn't matter whether it was Qian Renxue or Zhu Qing, everything was for the mission of Wuhan Palace. But after adopting Xiaoshan, she desperately wanted to be herself for the first time. By that time, Xiaoshan should be surprised. Right, the prince brother whom I have been calling for so many years turns out to be a big sister with an angelic face. Qian Renxue has always been very confident about her appearance. I'm really looking forward to Xiaoshan's reaction when the time comes. Qian Renxue's voice stopped suddenly, as if she suddenly thought of something, and the smile on her face suddenly faded away, replaced by a worried and panicked look. Because Xiaoshan's brother still doesn't know her true identity until now. If she knew that she was the saint of Wuhan Palace, will little brother Xiaoshan still stick to his side like before, always saying brother prince? When that time comes, will brother Xiaoshan be able to accept the saint of Wuhan Palace? Qian Renxue is both longing for and hesitant about the future. She wanted to let Lingtian see her true identity earlier, but she was afraid that after her identity was revealed, the system would gradually alienate her, or even become an enemy of herself. No matter what Xiaoshan said, he was still a member of the Qian Dou royal family. At this time, Qian Renxue completely lived up to her original vow, and was full of confidence that everything was under control. Xiaoshan, how will you choose? How do you choose yourself, brother? Xiaoshan, I won't let you leave me. After a long silence, Qian Renxue suddenly shook her head. A decisive look flashed in her eyes. She wants both brother and sister. It's really about that time. Even if she tied him to her side, she would not let Xiaoshan leave her. But this is just the worst plan. Only when there is no other way, Qian Renxue will consider using this method to keep Lingtian by her side. Brother Xiaoshan, don't let your sister down. At the same time, on the outskirts of Qian Dou City, Lingtian said softly, Uncle Ning, just send it here. Xiaoshan, I will visit the sect often, when I have time in the future. No matter when, the door of Kibao Glazed sect will be open for you. Ning Fengxi patted Lingtian's shoulder and said with a gentle smile. Although Lingtian rejected the engagement yesterday, Ning Fengxi admired Lingtian even more. Clear organization and not afraid of power. Such a spiritual heaven makes Ning Fengxi feel that he cannot miss it. Lingtian felt warm in his heart. Thank you, Uncle Ning. Xiaoshan, Qian Dou City is not as good as the sect. Chen Xin landed next to Lingtian and whispered, sometimes it is not convenient for king to take action, but as a teacher, you still have some dignity in the royal family. Teacher, I'm afraid there are not many people who can bully me. Although Lingtian's tone was calm, it revealed a sense of arrogance. Good boy, you are worthy of being my disciple. Chen Xin suddenly laughed loudly. What you need is this confidence and arrogance. This is a high-spirited genius boy. Genius means being energetic. Originally, he thought that Lingtian was a little too reserved, which was not conducive to developing the sharp-edged characteristics of a swordsman. Unexpectedly, today he was given a big surprise. This kid usually doesn't show off his integrity, but who knows, he has such arrogance deep down in his heart. Qian Dou City. The tall city gate is 10 meters wide, and it is also 10 meters wide, enough for 6 riders to ride abreast. There are 2 auxiliary gates next to it, which are also 5 meters high and wide. Passers-by can only enter through the auxiliary gates. The middle gate is usually used for carriages. Both sides of the street were as lively as before, and vendors along the street were constantly shouting, candied, horse on ice, sweet and sour candied, horse on a stick, cooking cake, Wudalang brand cooking cake, delicious and crispy, don't miss it if you pass by. The century-old formula Soul Master pills. Take one and your soul power will increase by 1 level immediately. Tiger, Whiplica, Millennium Fierce Tiger. Everyone who has tried it says it's good. Noisy, hawking sounds came and went. With his light blue robe, icy blue hair, handsome face, and cute ice silkworms with plump flesh on his shoulders, Lingtian attracted the attention of many people because of his strong contrast with cuteness as soon as he entered the city. But the ice silkworm on the shoulder at this moment is not the Qian Meng before, or in other words, the consciousness in the ice silkworm's body is not Qian Meng. The one who controls this body now is Gu Xiaoran. I don't know how I negotiated with Qian Meng, but this guy was able to agree to Gu Xiaoran's request. However, Gu Xiaoran's origin is still in Lingtian's body, so he uses Qian Meng's body to come out for a breather, and has to return to his origin in about an hour every day. This is also the reason why Lingtian did not stop the 2 of them. Tanghilu, candied horse on ice. In front of the candied horse stall, Lingtian stopped and missed the familiar taste. While walking along the way, Lingtian also ate a lot of candied horse on a stick, but the one that sweeted him the most was the candied horse on a stick from Qian Dou City. Chapter 91. With me, Xiaoshan will always be a child. Walking into the stall, it was still the same as before. It's still the same boss as before, and it's still the same taste as before. Boss, here are 2 bunches of candied horse, please. Wait a moment, sir. The hawker owner had a warm smile on his face, and he quickly packed up the candied horse on a stick while chatting. The guest officer looked surprised. Is this the first time for an outsider to come to Qian Dou City? Let me tell you, my candied horse on a stick is the best. Absolutely, Lingtian said calmly. I grew up in Qian Dou City. Sir, how good is your candied horse on a stick? The shop owner was silent for a while, but as if nothing happened, he still handed over the candied horse with a smile on his face. Thanks. Leaving behind 2 copper soul coins, Lingtian left the stall. Click. Taste is sour and sweet, but still the original taste. On his shoulder, Gu Xiaoran asked curiously, Lingtian, is this red fruit really that delicious? Ever since he woke up, he often watched Lingtian eating candied horse of sugar. over and over again. He was a little curious about what this thing would taste like. Of course, it's a pity that you can't eat it. Lingtian nodded and finally did not forget to hit Gu Xiaoran. You guys really hold a grudge. You can summon me again in one night at most. I'm sure you will thank me for the reminder. Gu Xiaoran severely despised Lingtian Queen, and her consciousness left Xian Meng's body and returned to the original space angrily. Ever since the scabbard entered the martial spirit space that day, the entire martial spirit space had been completely sealed. Even the Bingji Frost Sword had its induction cut off, and he could not summon it, no matter what point. If it weren't for Gu Xiaoran's explanation, Lingtian would have thought that Wuhan had disappeared. But the sudden inability to summon the martial spirit made him very uncomfortable, so he deliberately attacked Gu Xiaoran just now. One night. However, after hearing the time given by Gu Xiaoran, Lingtian's eyes revealed a look of anticipation. After 2 days of waiting, he hoped that the Bingji Frost Sword would bring him a different surprise. The Bingji Sword was originally a top-grade sword martial spirit. I wonder how it can be improved through this transformation. With some anticipation, Lingtian sped up and soon arrived at the gate of the prince's mansion. Master. Lingtian. The guard guarding the door was also an old man. Naturally, he was Lingtian. After bowing respectfully, he let the door open. Go and tell His Highness the Crown Prince that Master Lingtian is back. After a while, study room. Although Qian Renxue was smart, she was still a little confused when dealing with government affairs for the first time, and countless memorials made her even more confused. The guard walked into the room slowly, knelt on one knee and half on the ground, and said respectfully, Your Highness, Master Lingtian is back. Xiaoshan is back. Qian Renxue put down the memorial in her hand and walked quickly outside the house, with a smile on her lips and an indescribable look of joy in her eyes. Brother, Prince, just a few steps out of the study, I heard a familiar voice. Xiaoshan. Qian Renxue turned her head in response, just in time to see a spiritual sky covered with golden sunlight, like a ball of warm light, and couldn't help but feel a little lost. She has a fair complexion, delicate facial features with a touch of handsomeness, handsomeness with a touch of gentleness, and gentleness with a touch of childishness. The temperament exuding from him is so complex, like a mixture of various temperaments. But among the gentleness and handsomeness, there is also his own unique etherealness and handsomeness. However, after not seeing each other for more than a month, Lingtian became even more handsome. Brother, Prince, why don't you recognize me? Looking at Qian Renxue, who had not made any move, Lingtian smiled lightly and joked softly, Of course I recognize him. No matter what Xiaoshan looks like, I will recognize him. Qian Renxue smiled softly, with a touch of tenderness between her brows. She walked slowly and naturally held Lingtian in her arms. Really? Of course it's true. The two of them were sitting in a familiar pavilion. Qian Renxue dispersed all the servants and listened quietly to Lingtian telling her the experience, with a peaceful smile always hanging on the corner of her mouth. The outside world is so wonderful. Xiaoshan has almost forgotten me. After Lingtian finished speaking, Qian Renxue handed over a cup of warm tea and joked with a smile. Of course not. Lingtian drank the tea in the cup in one gulp and said sternly, No matter where I go, only Brother Prince's place is my home. Lingtian will never forget Brother Prince no matter what. Home. Qian Renxue was stunned for a moment, and a warm current surged in her heart. Family. However, although Xiaoshan is right, it is not complete. Only one person is not a complete family. What's wrong with Brother Prince? Fine. Seeing the water stains hanging on the corners of Lingtian's mouth, Qian Renxue took out a handkerchief with a thought, hesitated for a moment, then reached out and gently wiped the corners of Lingtian's mouth. Then he handed the handkerchief to Lingtian, as if nothing had happened. At the same time, he said with a bit of reproach, You are always messy when doing things. Why are you in a hurry to drink tea? You will leave it everywhere. Take it and wipe the water stains on your clothes. You say you're thirsty. Lingtian smiled and took the handkerchief naturally, seemingly not noticing anything wrong with Qian Renxue's behavior. Just wiping my mouth, something that used to happen. Qian Renxue smiled and said, You are still the same as when you were a child. Then, does the prince prefer Lingtian when he was a child or Lingtian now? Lingtian held his chin with one hand and squinted at Qian Renxue with interest. I like them all. Qian Renxue smiled lightly and pinched Lingtian's soft and white cheeks. It feels more comfortable to touch than before, brother prince. I have grown up. Lingtian patted Qian Renxue's catkins away with a hint of helplessness in his cold eyes. In my eyes, Xiaoshan will never grow up. Qian Renxue teased Lingtian with a chuckle and squeezed it wantonly for a long time before letting go of her hands with satisfaction. So cute. Just keep Xiaoshan by your side. Qian Renxue made up her mind that she would never let Xiaoshan leave her again. Brother prince, as he said that, Lingtian suddenly thought of something and said softly, on the way back, I met Uncle Ning and the teacher. Have you met the teacher? Qian Renxue was stunned for a moment, and her expression suddenly turned serious. Did he, the teacher, tell you some other things? Uncle Ning wants me to get engaged to senior sister Angrang. Lingtian tapped his forehead and said slowly, chapter 92 for me, take off the disguise. You agreed. Qian Renxue fiddled with the tea set on the table with her right hand, seemingly asking a normal question, but her left fist under the table was clenched tightly, and there was an anger as cold as winter hidden in her eyes. Ning Fengzi, that's great. I didn't take care of you for a while, and you took advantage of it. Of course not. Seeing Qian Renxue's dull reaction, Lingtian curled his lips and asked casually, why, the prince brother really wants me to agree. Of course not. Qian Renxue said subconsciously. She wished that Lingtian would cut off all contact with the Kibao glazed sect. How could she expect him to agree? If you don't want it, don't want it. Brother prince, why are you so excited? Lingtian held his chin in his hands and looked at Qian Renxue curiously. I still have things to deal with. Xiaoshan, you go back to your room to rest first, and we'll talk about it later. Sometimes, Qian Renxue realized that something was wrong with her mood just now, so she hurriedly explained a few words and quickly fled the courtyard. Bang. The doors closed together thickly. So shameful, almost exposed in front of Xiaoshan, walking to the bronze mirror in the room, gently stroking the tips of her hot ears. Qian Renxue's eyes flashed with a hint of embarrassment, and her cheeks gradually became crimson. At the same time, in the pavilion, brother prince, I'm so shy. Lingtian held his chin with both hands and looked at Qian Renxue's retreating back, while murmuring in a low voice. An imperceptible smile flashed across his face. It's quite interesting to see the prince brother like this. This trial seemed to be quite successful. She seems to like him too, but now we can only test this point first, otherwise the prince brother will find out. At this moment Gu Xiaoran's voice rang in his ears, and at the same time, he controlled Xian Meng's plump body and climbed from his chest to Lingtian's shoulders. With great effort, Lingtian put away his smile and said, what's wrong, Gu? Xiaoran pondered for a moment and said firmly, that prince brother of yours may have some problems. Is there any problem? Lingtian looked indifferent and said as if nothing had happened. Just now I was a little curious about that person's identity, so I subconsciously took a few more glances, but I happened to find that he was covered with a layer of illusory soul power. His current appearance may not be the real her. Lingtian nodded calmly and said, then, what else did you find? The soul power in her body is very strange. Gu Xiaoran recalled for a moment and said with some uncertainty, it seems to have the aura of a god, but I'm too weak now and can only sense that layer of soul power and cannot see through it. Well, what happens next? Lingtian said nonchalantly. After a moment of silence, Gu Xiaoran finally noticed Lingtian's perfunctory behavior. He blinked suspiciously, observing Lingtian's reaction. You don't seem to be surprised. Could you have known about it a long time ago? Almost. Ling Xianping smiled calmly, picked up the teacup at hand, and took a sip. We have already reached this point, and if we can no longer guess Qian Renxue's true identity, then Lingtian might as well find someone to kill him as soon as possible. Lingtian, I have a way. Maybe I can get through that layer. No need. Lingtian shook his head, not caring about Gu Xiaoran's method. Aren't you curious? Lingtian was silent for a moment, then a trace of determination flashed in his eyes, and he said seriously, but I hope even more that she can take off the disguise for me with her own hands. Disguise? I don't understand what you are talking about. Human beings are really complicated. Forget it, you can do whatever you want. I'm going back to rest, go. Xiaoran looked at Lingtian with a confused expression, preparing to return to the original space point. Lingtian said sincerely, thank you, Leo Gu, go. Xiaoran was stunned for a moment. What did you call me? Don't you like it, Leo Gu? After pondering for a moment, Lingtian asked tentatively, well, Leo Jin, Leo Long, or Leo Wang, do you choose one? This king, forget it, call it whatever you like, go. Xiaoran felt that she could not argue with Lingtian, so she voluntarily gave up the debate and retreated to the original space in despair. I should come back early. Lingtian half closed his eyes and whispered to himself in a low voice. He should return to the prince's mansion as soon as possible. Because this way he could figure it out earlier. The vague figure in his heart was Qian Renxue. The reason for the vagueness was that he had never seen Qian Renxue's true face before, and that figure was just an image he had imagined, not the Zuking she had been pretending to be. It is precisely for this reason that the spiritual genius has never been determined. It wasn't until today, when he returned to the prince's mansion and saw Qian Renxue again, that the confused feelings in his heart convinced Lingtian that the person he liked was her. That's why there was the previous temptation. Whether she is the saint of Wuhan Palace or the prince of Qian Dou Empire, Lingtian does not care about Qian Renxue's identity. The only thing he cares about is her feelings for him. Fortunately, he and she both have each other in their hearts, and going both ways is the most important thing. Prince, no, I should call you Sister Zua now. While murmuring, Lingtian carefully put away the handkerchief left behind, swept across the closed door. A faint smile flashed across his eyes, and then drank the water in the glass in one gulp. I will help you, Sister Zua. Lingtian murmured in a low voice, and his expression gradually became firm. He understood Qian Renxue's current situation. So he wants to help Qian Renxue, but now his strength is far from enough. Neither the Qian Dou imperial family nor the spirit hall can be shaken by his little soul master, but Lingtian was not in a hurry. Ice god heritage, golden dragon king, far north, etc. These resources are enough for him to grow quickly, and he is sure that he will have enough strength by then. The sun sets, and twilight falls. A bright moon rises slowly, bringing a starry night sky. The twinkling stars are scattered around the bright moon, and the gauze-like clouds and mist float in the night sky, like an ethereal fairyland hiding palaces and palaces. The night sky in the distance is connected to the earth, as if they are one body without division. Since Qian Renxue hurried back to the study in the morning, Lingtian has not seen her leave the room until now. He only saw the back of a figure reading at night through the window screen. I just don't know if there are really too many official documents, or if it's due to other reasons. Looking at Qian Renxue's hard work, Lingtian finally did not disturb her, and quietly returned to his room. On the bed. Lingtian sat cross-legged, and practiced seriously. The ice attributed soul power in the air was drawn, and the temperature around Lingtian suddenly dropped, and even his clothes were covered with a layer of frost. But cold temperatures are most suitable for Lingtian. Chapter 93 Ice G-Sword, in Frost Sheath. The soul power of the active ice attributes is condensed into a slender blue silk thread, flowing into the body along the traction of Lingtian, and slowly enhancing his soul strength. Boom. The turbulence of the soul power was suddenly uncontrollable, breaking the balanced state that was originally maintained. Lingtian was forced to retreat from the cultivation state. Lingtian frowned slightly, and the consciousness was explored in the body. Washan. Space, can you feel the source of the turbulent soul power is the originally closed martial arts space. At this moment, the new soul power has emerged from it, replacing the original soul power in the body. Although the whole process looks very horizontal, it can actually be replaced very gentle. The original soul power has no resistance. It's like the stream that is urgent to return to the sea, and the endless flowing towards the sea, and transforming. Eventually, from the small stream to the magnificent sea again. With the continuous transformation of the process, the soul ring also automatically appears in front of the body. With the improvement of the level of the soul power, the ice blue soul ring is becoming more and more pure. The crystal call is surrounded by Lingtian, like the master of the ice and snow. Single. In order to prevent unnecessary trouble, To prevent the soul power of fluctuations, Lingtian uses the soul to on the body surface, condenses into a light blue film, isolation of the continuous transformed soul power, the breath of. Lingtian also became more stable. The soul energy scattered from the body continued to decrease the temperature in the room, and the body was covered with a thick layer of frost. Time passed in 1 minute and 1 second. The Lingtian sitting cross-knee opened his eyes suddenly, and in the depths of his eyes, a deep blue light burst out. Click. To click get up. Lingtian's ice layer was broken, scattered around the bed, and at the same time moved slightly. His hands were fist, and he felt a new soul power surging in the body. Great. Pure. This is the first feeling of Xinhunli to Lingtian. Although the former soul power was also blue, it was not as pure as it is now. Except for pureness, Lingtian didn't know what to use to modify. In addition, the strength of the soul power is several times more than before. If the original soul force can freeze a bucket of water, then now use the same soul power, but can freeze a whole bucket. The efficiency of the use of soul power becomes stronger, although when it releases the soul skills, although the total amount of soul power consumed isn't changed. The power of one shot is several times more than before. At the same time, the soul power changes the most essential influence. Lingtian is directly linked to the 3rd level, and it has been promoted to the 39th level of the soul. Bing. Yan. The change in the soul power alone has improved, making Lingtian source of all this change. The change of Wuhan is even more expected. Mind. Bing Yan Iron Frost Sword appeared in front of Lingtian. But at this moment, Bing Iron Yanshang is different from the past. It has an additional ice blue scabbard, and this scabbard is exactly the scabbard in the auction house. It really Bing Iron's scabbard. Although Lingtian had guessed this before, it really became a reality. It is still a bit incredible. You know that the scabbard actually exists, but the Bing Iron Yanshuang sword is just the martial arts of Lingtian. How can the martial arts be integrated into the actual things? But the incident now happened. The Bing Iron Yin sword is really integrated with the scabbard, which has become a complete god sword. It sounds magical, but it happens big. Lingtian Zhang opened his hand and grabbed the Bing Jian sword. It looks like it is a good match. The patterns on the scabbard and the patterns carved on the hilt are naturally natural. At a glance, it was seen in the past for 2 days. There is an additional sword sheath, but it's good. Lingtian is thinking. After all, the sword without a scabbard is incomplete. Gently twist the lines on the scabbard, and the blue soul power is lingering between the fingers, as if it is conveying its joy with Lingtian, and the horn handle is also passed on. After a while, the 2 ice blue thin lines kept rising around Lingtian's arms, and finally poured into the center of Lingtian's eyebrows together. The ice god seal of the Bing Shen was also activated at this time with blue light. The original small Bing Iron Yin Shuang sword also appeared on the same scabbard. At the same time, a few pictures emerged from the depths of the memory, which led Lingtian's consciousness to invest in. It continued to change your content like a album. Ice and snow. Snowflakes are flying. In this unmanned ice field, a ice blue sword blank was cast by a soul beast with a rare mineral material. This soul beast is the Lingtian of the first life. Before he was rebuilt, he had already counted the future again. He does not want to renovate to rebuild, just as an ordinary title Douluo. He wants to become an immortal god. Tens of thousands of years of collected materials. Lingyi casts the sword body of this sword. Immediately after the casting completes the sword, it is burned with land fire, supplemented by the thunderbolt, hidden under the ice marrow, and after tens of thousands of years of extreme power, to cultivate. After renovation, cast this god sword. This sword is Bing Yin Cream. The scabbard covered on it is exactly the mysterious scabbard at the auction. These two are the power of the Lingtian in the past. The deities rely on. Thanks to the cover of the atmosphere of the extreme northern land, Lingtian can successfully create its own divine position. Bing Yingxiang also became an artifact. Sword name Bing Yu. History name Yanshang. The sword body should become ice, and the sheath body should become a cream. Both are semi-artifacts. In fact, when the sword was cast, Ling Xianban just wanted to cast the sword body ice. I did not expect that the frost of the ice bodies gathered in the ice marrow was buried in the ice marrow. And Lingtian also poured the scabbard into the power. In the end, they turned both into their own artifacts. and they named them Bingyan and Yinshan Point when waking up the martial arts that day. Although Yinshan was not in the sword body, the sword body and the sheath body were integrated. It is precisely because the two are one and one. So after the Bingji sword turned into a martial arts, Yinshan sheath can also turn into Wuhan soul and enter the martial arts space together, so that Bingai and Yinshan will be integrated again. So, this is a real ice cream. Lingtian put Bingai and Yinshan in front of her, rubbing the lines of the sheath's body. The middle sheath body was particularly excited, and it seemed to vent her reunion with Bingshen for a long time. Buzzing, I won't let you separate anymore. Lingtian understood that Yinshan was so confused, and smiled lightly towards Yinshan's skin. Chapter 94. The scabbard is unified, and the magic reappears. Next, let's take a look at the changes in Bingji sword. Brush. The left hand holds the frost sheath, and the right hand holds the hilt. To pull out the Bingji sword. Clang. The crisp sword cry was accompanied by the sword light, and the white and sharp sword body flashed with a bit of cold light. The Yinshan sheath suddenly turned into a ball of light, and merged into the Bingji sword. The two became one. The ice blue soul power was bone chilling. As the scabbard merged, it extended from the hilt to the sword body, and began to emit a faint light. Finally, an ice blue long sword was held in Lingtian's hand. Ice G sword now is the real Ice G sword, or the real Ice G Yinshan. Lingtian suddenly slowly released the Bingji sword. The floating Bingji sword in the next second was still shining with ice blue light, and it had not turned into the dark fire stick with cracks on the sword body last time. Bing. G. Suppressing his excitement, Lingtian observed carefully. It's really changed, except for some dim red threads on the sword. The entire Bingji sword has regained some of its charm. Although it is not as dazzling as in the memory, it is no longer as inseparable as before. The divine power contained in the Yinshan sheath repaired part of the Ice G sword. At the same time, the Shura divine power within it was also diluted. Although it was not completely removed, most of it has been restored now, and the Bingji sword has also regained some of its power. If we say that the previous Bingji sword was the best sword with martial spirit. Now, after merging with Yinshan sheath, Bingji Yinshan has become a god level martial spirit, restored some of his god level abilities, as long as Lingtian obtains the status of ice god again. The Bingji Yinshan will appear again, and become an artifact. At the same time, his barely there soul power and soul ring will also undergo transformation and completely transform into divine power and divine rings. Bingji Yinshan. This is Bingji Yinshan. Looking at the divine sword in his palm, a smile appeared on the corner of Lingtian's mouth, and his eyes shone with excitement. Now, you understand why I asked you to buy Yinshan. Gu. Zioran didn't know when she turned her consciousness to Qian Meng again. At this moment, it was lazily lying on a piece of broken ice, crossing its legs, and looking at Lingtian proudly. Why did Bingji and Yinshan break up back then? Lingtian rolled his eyes at Gu Zioran, but still asked in confusion. Because of you. When you died, that person smashed the Ice G sword that carried the god's throne, in order to eradicate the roots. Gu. Zioran pondered for a while, and then said to Lingtian in a low voice, it's just that he doesn't know that you have two artifacts, and half of the god's power is still left on the Yinshan sheath. It is precisely because the remaining half of the ice god's power in the frost sheath barely keeps your true spirit alive, so I have time to take you out of the god realm, to reincarnate and rebuild. However, on the way back to the lower realm, Yinshan sheath consumed most of its divine power in order to repair the broken Ice G sword. Finally, after arriving at the Douluo continent, it could no longer support the sheath, and returned to its original shape and fell. But at that time, I was maintaining your true spirit, and was powerless to deal with the frost sheath, so I could only watch it fall. I originally wanted to tell you about the frost Yining sheath when your soul emperor is around. By then, relying on the induction of the Bingji sword and the frost Yining sheath, I could easily find the location of the frost Yining sheath. I didn't expect you to be lucky. You can actually encounter the frost song scabbard just by going to an auction, which will save you the trouble of looking for it in the future. He decided to tell Lingtian part of the truth, give him some pressure and a sense of urgency, and relax him, in order to improve his strength as quickly as possible. The world of gods has fallen, the roots have been eradicated, and the throne of God has been shattered. From the information provided by Gu Xiaoran, Lingtian had a preliminary understanding of the reason for his death. First, start in the God realm. Secondly, the identity of this person is definitely not simple. Finally, this person is so powerful that he can not only kill himself, but also break the divine throne. The only ones who dare to take action in the God realm have a strong background and have the ability to surely defeat first level gods. The only ones who meet these three conditions are the 5 great god kings. In other words, it fell because the god king took action. Lingtian, you must hurry up and improve your strength. The situation in the god realm is very complicated. After Gu Xiaoran left the last reminder, 1 hour was completely consumed, and he turned into a golden light and returned to the original space. Now, we're in trouble. Lingtian sighed. The expression on his face became a little more solemn. But there is still a chance. At the very least, he is reincarnated now, and he is hiding, and they are hiding. Coupled with Gu Xiaoran, if he plans carefully, he may still have some chance of winning. God realm, I will definitely go back. Lingtian clenched his fists, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. Defeating the God King may not be impossible. 11 years old, 39th level Soul Master. Now that his strength has improved quickly enough, it is only a matter of time before he returns to the position of Ice God and masters his original strength. It's just that Lingtian alone, even if he returns to the God realm, the Ice God alone is still no match for the God King. He needs stronger strength. However, Lingtian is not worried about this. Since Gu Xiaoran has taken him to rebuild his life, he will definitely not let himself go back to the old path. At the very least, he must have the strength to rival the God King. All he has to do now is improve his strength. But now in the Qian Dou Empire, the only thing that can increase soul power without side effects is the many immortal herbs in the eyes of the Ice and Fire Eyes. Now that he has the Ice God's eternal memory, it is no problem to identify the efficacy of the herbs. Time to plant some ambrosia. If he didn't go to the Ice and Fire Eyes when Tang Sun came to Qian Dou City, all these herbs would be named Tang, and he would directly pack them up in a pot and take them away. Lingtian's current goal, absorb the fairy grass and break through the soul sect. If he returns to the far north to obtain new soul rings and soul bones, his strength will be greatly improved. He can also go to that place in advance to hone his skills. The sky was getting brighter, and the starlight had not yet disappeared, and only a touch of fish belly white appeared on the horizon. Lingtian's martial soul evolved last night, and his soul power reached the 4th level in a row. The fatigue on his body has long been wiped away. In addition, he is now a soul master, so a night of meditation will not have any impact on him. Therefore, Lingtian is still in high spirits. After practicing for a whole night. Push open the door. Leaning against the door frame, looking at the rising sun on the horizon, he stretched out his waist comfortably. Crunch. At the same time, Qian Renxue also walked out of the room. Lingtian turned his head in response, chuckled and said, "Hello, brother prince, it's still the same as before. Don't you know how to tidy up yourself in the mirror?" Qian Renxue rolled her eyes at Lingtian. Although she complained, she walked behind Lingtian as before and lowered her head to help him tidy up his messy hair. Please vote more and give rewards to support Xian. The recommendation position failed to advance, but the editor said that there is still a chance to continue reading. Xian wants to make more recommendations, so I'm asking everyone. Chapter 95. Interlocking fingers. It's too troublesome to tie your hair together, and isn't there a prince brother? Qian Renxue's heart trembled slightly, and she inadvertently plucked her heartstrings. After a moment of silence, she lowered her voice and asked, "What if I'm not here? Then just cut it off, or tie it together." Lingtian smiled lightly and said casually, "Don't cut it off, I'll comb it for you later." But, without further words, Qian Renxue took off her hair tie. He lowered his head to spread out his icy blue hair, and at the same time, took out a wooden comb to tidy up his hair. Qian Renxue was very patient, and sorted it out over and over again. It wasn't until she regained her softness that she put down the wooden comb with satisfaction, took out a new hair tie, wrapped it around the roots of her hair into a bun, and then put on a dark blue hair crown. But Lingtian stood there obediently. Qian Renxue let Qian Renxue adjust her hair, half squinting her eyes, as if she was enjoying it all. Alright, the gentle voice rang in his ears again, and when Lingtian came back to his senses, Qian Renxue had already come around, and was looking at him with a smile. I didn't know that such a handsome little brother would take advantage of that girl in the future. Qian Renxue smiled softly, with a hint of jealousy in her pale golden eyes, and couldn't help but pinch Lingtian's soft face again. The broken hair on her forehead was pushed back by Qian Renxue, revealing her delicate ice blue eyes, a pretty nose, petal-like lips, fair and perfect facial features, and a high ponytail tied with a blue hair crown. What a graceful person. A handsome young man. Thinking of this, Qian Renxue couldn't help but rub Xiaoshan's head again. But at this moment, he suddenly discovered that Lingtian is no longer much shorter than himself. I'm afraid that in a few years, I will be able to raise my hand to touch Lingtian's head. After being stunned for a moment, Qian Renxue touched Lingtian's head and rubbed her cheeks vigorously, as if she wanted to remember this feeling in her heart. At this time, Qian Renxue was thinking, in a few years, it will be out of reach. At the same time, Lingtian sighed and did not clap his palms away. He just looked at Qian Renxue helplessly, but because of his height, he could only see her snow white jade neck. Since you can't get rid of it, learn to endure it. Need it. When you have needed enough, you will stop. After a long while, Qian Renxue finally stopped. Xiaoshan hasn't had breakfast yet. Yeah. Lingtian rubbed his cheek and nodded. Then, let's go eat. Saying that, Qian Renxue raised her chin, ignored Lingtian's resentful look, grabbed her palms, and walked towards the restaurant unhurriedly, feeling the warmth in his palms. A smile flashed across Lingtian's face. Something suddenly occurred to me. Then her 5 fingers passed through Qian Renxue's fingers, and then she grasped the catkins with her palms downward. Before she could say anything, the palms of her hands were already close to each other, and her 10 fingers were intertwined and clasped together tightly. Xiaoshan, what are you doing? Qian Renxue's heart trembled slightly. Although she had never been in love, she still read a lot of storybooks in the Forbidden City, and she also knew a little bit about the affairs between men and women. Naturally, this interlocking finger gesture can only be used by couples who are passionately in love. Hold hands. Lingtian took Qian Renxue's catkins and shook them a few times. Then with a pure smile on her face, I read it in a book a few days ago. It said that, if you meet someone who has a relationship with you, a very good person can hold each other's hand like this. Qian Renxue's face darkened and she said, that's what the book said. Well, isn't what the book says wrong? Lingtian raised his head, his big watery eyes blinking, staring at Qian Renxue innocently, full of doubts and curiosity. The look in her eyes was so lethal that Qian Renxue didn't know how to speak. Qian Renxue took a deep breath to calm down. Then something suddenly occurred to him, and he stared at Lingtian's eyes tightly, but pretended to be casual and asked, Xiaoshan, how many people have you held hands with like this? Hey, how many times have you been held, Prince? No, Sister Zhu here. Are you jealous? Why haven't you noticed before that Sister Zhu is still a jealous person? But there is a saying, Sister Zhu looks like this. She is completely different from her usual cuteness. When it comes to Sister Zhu, she is really a bit cute. Let me think about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, there are 5 more. Lingtian suddenly wanted to tease Qian Renxue, deliberately twiddling his fingers, frowning and pretending to remember seriously. 1, 2, 3, 4. Listening to Xiaoshan's tone, it seems there's more to it than that. Qian Renxue's eyes gradually became sharp, and she thought to herself, it is a picture book sold by that unscrupulous merchant. If I find out about it, I will overturn it. No, I will burn down your bookstall with a fire. Qian Renxue felt instantly uncomfortable when she thought of Xiaoshan being tricked by an unscrupulous merchant. At this moment, Lingtian's crisp laughter brought Qian Renxue back to her senses. She turned her head and looked at Lingtian with confusion. Xiaoshan, what are you laughing at, brother? Prince, I just lied to you. A smile appeared at the corner of Lingtian's mouth, and he continued, I actually saw this in the painting book last night. Brother Prince is lucky to be the first one. If the joke continues, Sister Zhu here will probably go berserk. The first one. After hearing these 3 words, the original anger disappeared. It's good that he didn't lead anyone else. Feeling Qian Renxue's warmth, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth again. Brother, Prince, at this time, Lingtian pulled Qian Renxue again, blinked his eyes, and said, Brother Prince hasn't answered the question I just asked. Oh, Xiaoshan, don't read that book again. What's written in it is wrong. Holding hands like this can only hold the person you truly cherish. As he spoke, Qian Renxue's face turned slightly red, but she still held Lingtian's little hand tightly, and even gained a little more strength. The fingers were pressed together tightly, with no intention of separating. Yeah, Lingtian murmured softly, staring at Qian Renxue with his deep eyes, a faint smile hidden in his eyes. Qian Renxue nodded as if nothing had happened. Lingtian suddenly let out a long sigh of relief, then patted his chest and said thankfully, fortunately, I didn't make a mistake. Brother Prince is the person I cherish, so, from now on, I can only hold the prince's brother's hand. Right, please. Vote more and give rewards to support Xian. The recommendation position failed to advance, but the editor said that there is still a chance to continue reading. Xian wants to make more recommendations, so I'm asking everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Xiaoshan, will you be surprised? Qian Renxue was proud in his heart. After Xiaoshan, he could only hold my hand. At the same time, a touch of cunning flashed in Lingtian's eyes, and a smile on the corner of her mouth. Sister Cha, who looked like this, was so cute. The little fox and the little white rabbit were so smiling that they felt that they had eaten each other. Qian Renxue suddenly thought of something and asked with a smile, by the way, where is your book? Here. Lingtian just took a book from the ring. I confiscated this book, said. Qian Renxue didn't even turn over and left the book directly into the ring. Well, thousands of snow surfaces have no expression. Is there any opinion? Without. Lingtian shook his head. At the same time, I couldn't help but silently sorrow for the author of this book. Poor authors. Hardworking books. Even if there are not many people support it, it will be 404 directly by someone. Okay, Xiaoshan, go breakfast with this palace. Qian Renxue started to smile again and took Lingtian to walk slowly towards the restaurant. The 2 fingers on the way were closely buckled together and they never separated. Dining room. Although it is only breakfast, it is still full of table. There are 6 dishes for breakfast, 5 kinds of noodles, 2 steaks and 1 soup. There are tempeh saw, saline okra, sesame pineapple, sauce, donkey meat, saltwater phoenix claws, mixing lotus slices. The noodles include stuffing, steamed cakes, sesame cakes, chicken cakes, osmanthus cakes, steamed meat buns. The ravioli is mutton soup, beef cream. The soup is the old duck soup of winter melon. His Royal Highness, please you sit slowly. The maid picked up the porcelain bowl of the 2, and after the meat crickets and duck soup were filled, they took a gift and retreated to the screen without affecting the dine. Looking at the rich dishes, Lingtian appetite. Looking at the food in front of him, Lingtian Binglan's eyes couldn't help but blink. After nodded gently, he picked up the tabla in front of him and ate it. There was no meaning to be polite. 1 bite and a bite of meat. Eating is very happy. Qian Renxue was holding his chin with both hands, looking at Lingtian without blinking, with a gentle smile on the corner of his mouth. After a while, I took a bowl of duck soup. Xiao Woody put back on the right hand, then picked up the chopsticks, pinched a dish. Every action adhered to the court etiquette and revealed the elegance. It's just that his eyes have never shifted from Lingtian's body. Half a point. After breakfast. Lingtian suddenly remembered something, wiped the corner of his mouth, and asked, Brother Prince, you call me back this time, what is it for? What else can be? Of course, I'm afraid that you will be abducted by someone. Of course, Qian Renxue must not say that. Qian Dou has changed recently. I'm afraid you will be in danger outside. Qian Renxue groaned for a while, and soon came up with a reasonable reason. Lingtian asked curiously, what changes, father? Emperor's body hugs, let the palace agent of the dynasty, Qian Renxue looked at Lingtian, and said, among them, the power of the opposition to me is now in the middle of the DPRK, so I'm worried that they will do it to the people around the palace. Qian Renxue trusts Lingtian. Except for the identity of the saint of Wuhan temple, she will not hide anything else. Brother princes, rest assured, some teachers are afraid to act. Lingtian does not worry about safety issues at the time. The worship of the 7 Baoliu Lizang invited the Zongmen that can be counted by the Qian Dou Empire, and the civil and military officials above the 3 grades of the DPRK. These people all know that Sword Douluo has accepted a disciple. His name is Lingtian, and he is the prince's person. If you want to touch him, you must first consider whether you can withstand Sword Douluo's anger, Lingtian thought for a while, and reminded with a solemn expression, brother prince, you have to be careful. I'm worried that, if they are desperate, they will most likely choose to fight to the death. He was more worried about Qian Renxue than himself. Although he is protected by title Douluo. But their identities are sensitive. Once the origin of Wuhandian is exposed, the crisis Qian Renxue will face will be 100 times more dangerous than assassination. Qian Renxue smiled calmly, they don't dare to do anything to me. She is Zhu Yi's chosen heir. Zhu Yi also had plans to hand over the throne to Qian Renxue. The obstacles in the court, Zhu Yi, can be regarded as a test, but if someone uses their brains outside the court, Qian Dou's emperor Zhu Yi is not a vegetarian. Okay, Qian Renxue changed the topic and said in a brisk tone, to celebrate your return, I have taken off all government affairs today. After dinner, we will go out for a walk. Listen to brother prince. Lingtian also nodded expectantly. Ever since he went to Kibeo glazed sect, he had not been alone with Qian Renxue for a long time. A flash of memories flashed in Qian Renxue's eyes, and she also missed the past time. Snap. At this moment, Qian Renxue was distracted and accidentally dropped the spoon into the bowl. The soup splashed everywhere and stained his clothes. Looking at the oil spots that couldn't be wiped off, Qian Renxue had a look of helplessness in her eyes. She couldn't go shopping with Lingtian in this outfit, could she? Qian Renxue could only look at Lingtian apologetically and said gently, Xiaoshan, please wait a moment, I will go back to the room and change my clothes first. Well, brother prince, go quickly. Lingtian nodded and watched Qian Renxue return to the room. Because she was disguised as Zuking, Qian Renxue's boudoir looked relatively simple, with no extraneous things, except the necessary items. Qian Renxue walked to the closet, where the uniforms were kept. After some searching, I found an outfit that I like. Qian Renxue changed clothes quickly, and soon she changed into a light blue inner lining, and a dark blue outer robe on the plain. It happens to be the same color as the robe Lingtian is wearing today. Pity. Looking at herself in front of the fitting mirror, Qian Renxue was silent for a long time, caressing her face, and a bitter smile slowly emerged. Pretended for so many years Qian Renxue almost forgot her true appearance. If she had her beautiful angelic face and Xiaoshan who was like an immortal, they would be the most perfect match if they stood together. When that time comes, Xiaoshan should be very surprised, probably. Thinking of this, Qian Renxue's eyes flashed with anticipation. Soon, just wait for a while, just wait for a while, she will be able to control the entire Qian Dou Empire in no time, and then she will be able to be her true self. Xiaoshan, thinking of this, Qian Renxue suddenly smiled brightly. Lingtian's figure flashed across her watery eyes, and there seemed to be stars twinkling in her eyes. Please vote more, and give rewards to support Xian. The recommendation position failed to advance, but the editor said that there is still a chance to continue reading. Xian wants to make more recommendations, so I'm asking everyone. Chapter 97 Epitaph. Crunch. Just walked out of the door. Qian Renxue suddenly stopped and took out a picture book. Zuling. It was what was confiscated from Lingtian before. Qian Renxue glanced at it and threw it away. Your Highness, the painting book drew a graceful arc in the air. Just when it was about to fall, Zuling's figure appeared, and she saluted while catching the painting book. Throw this book away. Qian Renxue paused, pondered for a moment and continued, let me find someone to tell all the bookstores in the city not to sell this book again. She is thinking about the next generation of Qian Dou. Don't let the children be misled by wrong knowledge. It's definitely not, because the little god is seeking personal revenge. Promise. Zuling nodded and took action immediately. Although he didn't know why he had to convey such an order, he was Qian Renxue's subordinate, and it was his duty to obey orders. Xiaoshan, have you been waiting for a long time? Came an elegant voice. Qian Renxue walked slowly with her hands behind her back, with a very gentle smile on her face, looking at Lingtian with a touch of tenderness hidden in her brows. It won't take long. Brother Prince, let's go. Lingtian smiled slightly, took the initiative to hold her hands, and clasped his two palms together again. Qian Renxue smiled and also held Lingtian's palm. Warm palms wrapped around each other. In addition to softness and warmth, a hint of sweetness echoed in the hearts of the two. Although I felt sweet in my heart, I didn't show it. The two held hands and walked straight out of the mansion. Talking and laughing along the way. Lingtian seemed to have suddenly enlightened, always making Qian Renxue laugh. Her joyful smile was bright and full of joy. In the past, I still had the love of Qian Douluo in Wuhan Hall. But since she came to the Qian Dou Empire, she has been suppressing her true emotions. Only in front of Lingtian will she reveal her true self. This smile is very beautiful. Lingtian didn't want Qian Renxue to lose this smile. Amid laughter and laughter, the two arrived in front of the mansion. At this moment, a carriage was parked. In front of the carriage was Zuling, the royal coachman of the prince's mansion. His Royal Highness, young Master Lingtian. Zuling bowed and opened the car curtain for the two of them. Qian Renxue nodded and led Lingtian onto the carriage. The two of them walked into the carriage. The decoration in the carriage was antique and exuded a light fragrance. Moreover, the carriage was equipped with very soft and comfortable cushions, making it very comfortable to sit on them. After Qian Renxue and Lingtian entered the carriage, Zuling drove the carriage towards the commercial street of the Qian Dou Empire. There were people coming and going on the street, so the speed of the carriage was not very fast. Inside the car, although there were cushions on both sides, the two of them sat together involuntarily. Xiaoshan, where do you want to go first today? As she spoke, Qian Renxue stretched out her frosty fingertips to straighten the scattered hair on Lingtian's forehead, while asking in a gentle tone, Brother Prince, I want to go see Grandpa. Lingtian looked sad and his tone became deeper, thinking of the old grandpa who was the first to treat him sincerely. Since he came back from Kibao glazed sect last time, he hasn't been to the cemetery for half a year. Okay, let's go now. Qian Renxue gently stroked Lingtian's forehead. Her tone was gentle, and her eyes were full of sympathy and concern. At the same time, he turned his head and said in a deep voice, Zuling, go to the cemetery. No. Zuling nodded, driving the carriage towards the cemetery. The two of them remained silent along the way, with only the sound of rolling wheels in their ears. The prince's mansion is not too far from the cemetery, and soon the carriage stopped in front of the cemetery. Your Highness, the cemetery has arrived. Qian Renxue opened the car curtain and slowly walked down with Lingtian. Xiaoshan, let's go. Qian Renxue took Lingtian's little hand and said softly, Lingtian nodded. His expression became solemn. Since being adopted by Qian Renxue, my grandfather's grave has also been moved to the cemetery. When I was in the Kibao glazed sect, every year on my grandfather's death anniversary, no matter what happened, the spirit god would come to visit the grave. Every time I leave here, I feel very peaceful. He also came back here to talk to his grandfather about his depression. Along the path in the middle of the tomb, Lingtian and Qian Renxue quickly arrived at the grandfather's grave. The grave is very clean. Qian Renxue often sent people to clean it, so the tomb was always kept clean. There is a stone tablet erected on it, which reads, Grandpa, the tomb of Wook. There is also a small word in the lower right corner, grandson, established by the spirit heaven. Wook was my grandfather's name. Last name, Wu. Name, Ikwa. A name that sounds like Wen Zhao Zhao. It sounds like he should be a scholar, but unexpectedly, he became a beggar. Below the inscription is an epitaph. Heavenly Dao Wook was a dandy at a young age. I love the prosperity, the monasteries, the beautiful maids, the fresh clothes. the food, the horses, the lanterns, the fireworks, the gardens, the antiques, the flowers and the birds. I also enjoy tea and oranges, reading stupid poems, and being busy. Point. If you stand still, nothing will be accomplished and everything will be in vain. Point. When he was 30 years old, his family was broken up and everyone died, so he took refuge in a shabby house. The only survivors had a broken bed, a piece of tattered clothes, a few broken books, and an inkstone. Point. Going back and forth day and night, living in confusion. Point. The clothes are rotten, the smoke is broken, and the clothes are not wrapped around the belly. Point. Looking back on the past, it feels like a lifetime ago. Point. He failed in his studies of literature and martial arts, so he took care of everything, and missed the brothels and theaters. He is a waste. A recalcitrant citizen, a talented person, a heartless person, a sleepy man, and a dead old charmer. It started as a dandy, and ended as a beggar. Negative to husband and wife, negative to lover, negative to brother, negative to sister. Today, the years have passed, and the full moon is missing. I miss you so much, that I regret it. Point. Time is also destiny, I only blame myself. Point. Half a lifetime has become a dream. Point. This is a biography written by Mr. Wu himself, covering his life. Point. Although he did not have the money to buy a stone tablet for the cemetery, the old man still belonged to Wen Zhaozhao, and left an epitaph for himself, saying that if he had the opportunity in the future, he would carve this half-life biography on the stone tablet. Point. So, when he rebuilt the tomb for the old man, Lingtian put this inscription on it: "Old man, I'm here to see you again." Lingtian walked slowly to the stone tablet, squatted down slowly, rubbed the lines on it with his palms, and murmured in a low voice, "Old man, why can't you wait one more year? Didn't you agree to let me? Do you want to enjoy the happiness with me?" Compared to Grandpa, Lingtian is more accustomed to being called old man. Point. After Wu corrected him several times to no avail, he could only accept this title. Point. After all, this kid Lingtian refuses to change despite repeated admonitions, and he has no other option. EDG is awesome. Please vote more, and give rewards to support Zion IU. The recommendation position failed to advance, but the editor said that there is still a chance to continue reading. Zion IU wants to make more recommendations, so I'm asking everyone. Chapter 98. Ocean Can 039 T. Go back. According to the old man himself, at that time, he was also learning rich and 5 cars. He was full of Meridian. Point. If it wasn't for the last house, and it was harmed by the adulterer, he had a long high school champion. Point. It is a veritable reader. So when Wu Guoping had nothing to do, he liked to sit in the courtyard to give Lingtian a romantic past. For example, a night spring breeze with the lady of Huakui, and the intercourse with the young lady of the official, etc. Point. Nympho, but these are listening and be a joy. Point. Wu has no quasi sentence. The protagonist of the story yesterday was Miss Wu, and I might change another surname tomorrow. Point. Whenever Lingtian wants to ask for a certificate, Wu will make his legs with a random leg. Point. No matter how Lingtian asked, he would use one sentence in the end. Hey, old, can't remember. In the end, the grass is ended, but it will continue to brag after a few days over time. Lingtian is also used to, however, although Wu likes bragging, it is excellent in treating Lingtian. Point. It can be said that it is true to be like myself. Although I have a lack of clothes and food, it can ensure that Lingtian will not be hungry. Point. It can be said that without Wu, there is no current Lingtian. Point. At that time, he was still a child. He had no ability to take care of himself. Without Wu's careful care, he might have frozen to death in the wilderness. He once said more than once that, when he becomes a soul master, he must bring Wu to Xiangfu. Point. But, now he has become a soul teacher. The old man, but has been buried in the Loess. After all, the day when he became a soul teacher, he worked hard to pull himself up. In the end, he still failed to wait until the day of the blessing. Old. No one, you have no luck. Speaking, it was obviously laughed, but there was a line of tears slipping from the corner of the eyes and falling on the stone monument, but Lingtian did not perceive it. Point. He thought of the old man's breath. Point. I remember the extra cold that day, and the old man seemed to feel something. Zhao Shan, the old man, I probably can't hold it this time. I have nothing to do in my life. The most correct thing to do is to adopt you in my later years. I Saved you a little bit of home under the bed. After I left, this money can spend some time. As for the future, you have to look at your own. Your kid is smart, and I can only help you to this step. Your kid has been clever since he was a child. Don't let the old man disappointed. You must give me a good survival. Didn't you tell me to be a soul teacher? Don't give me a shame. If you say it. Also, when your boy meets the beloved woman, don't hesitate to catch up and chase it boldly. Remember to bring it to the old man. If you are still alone after the age of 20, don't come over. I can't lose this person. The old man has done a lot of wrong things in his life, disappointed the expectations of his family, and also disappointed the most beloved woman. If you are fortunate to see the owner of this earrings, remember to say sorry for the old man. If I was interested in being brave, Wuguo trembled and took out her earrings, carefully staring at the palm of his hand silently. His originally cloudy eyes became a little brighter at this moment. That night the old man took Lingtian and talked a lot. It wasn't until he finished explaining the last thing and took a deep look at Queen Lingtian that he closed his old eyes with regret and unwillingness. Just this confinement lasts a lifetime. It also ended Wuguo's bad life. Old man, I'm now a soul master, but I have never embarrassed you. It's a pity that I didn't let you see it with your own eyes. Lingtian looked at Qian Renxue beside him, wiped away the tears from the corners of his eyes, and murmured in a low voice, as for the person I love, I have already met her, and I will never miss her in this life. Even without the old man's instructions, Qian Renxue would not be missed. However, he has not found the owner of the earrings yet. If he meets someone in the future, he will convey the old man's words to her. If she remembers the old man, Xiaoshan, Grandpa Wu is gone, but I will always be by your side. At this time, Qian Renxue slowly walked to Lingtian, opened her arms, and held him in her arms, patting him gently with a soft voice. It comforts the soul. Lingtian leaned on Qian Renxue's shoulder, with a flash of warmth in his eyes, and said softly, I will always accompany the prince brother. Then, we have made an agreement. Xiaoshan is not allowed to go back on his word, Qian Renxue said tentatively. Lingtian nodded and said seriously, I won't regret it. After a while, Lingtian regained his emotional stability, took Qian Renxue's little hand, and said softly, Brother Prince, let's go. Aren't you going to take a look? Qian Renxue said softly. Lingtian shook his head and explained, the old man doesn't like others crying in front of his grave. Then, where does Xiaoshan want to go next? Qian Renxue continued to ask. Lingtian thought for a while and said, listen to the prince's brother. It was no problem for him to go there, as long as he was with Qian Renxue. His white fingertips tapped Lingtian's forehead, and a helpless smile appeared in his eyes. Then he took Lingtian's little hand, and walked slowly towards the carriage. Before leaving, Lingtian took one last look at the old man's tombstone, and said silently in his heart, I'm leaving, old man. I will try to make Sister Zuhir truly your granddaughter-in-law next time, when I come to visit the grave. The carriage left the cemetery and headed towards Qian Dou Commercial Street. Along the way, Lingtian and Qian Renxue looked at the prosperous street scene of Qian Dou City through the car window. With Qian Renxue's adjustment along the way, Lingtian also regained his former liveliness. They were talking and laughing all the way, and the carriage was full of joy. Brother Prince, stop for a moment. Halfway through, Lingtian suddenly stopped the carriage. When he saw the most familiar stall, a flash of memory flashed in Lingtian's eyes. What's wrong, Xiaoshan? Qian Renxue turned her head curiously and looked where Lingtian was looking, with a look of puzzlement and doubt in her eyes. Why would Xiaoshan look there? Except for a steamed bun stall, there is nothing special. Chapter 99. What about mine? Brother Prince, Lingtian pointed to the stall not far away, with a slightly complicated look on his face, and said softly, since the old man passed away, before I met the prince brother, I have been living alone. That year was thanks to Uncle Wu's care. At that time, the steamed buns he gave me were always the cheapest, and he always gave me something to eat for various reasons. Uncle Wu always made excuses, saying that the steamed buns were left over, or that no one wanted them. After they fell to the ground, he used this excuse to sell me steamed buns at a very low price. I remember all these things clearly. As he spoke, a smile couldn't help but appear at the corner of his mouth. For others, 1 copper soul coin buys a steamed bun, But for him, 1 soul coin can buy 2 or 3 steamed buns. Although it is said that there is something wrong with the steamed buns, I sell them to myself at a low price point, but among businessmen who would lose steamed buns every day and who would have just a few steamed buns left every day, he kept these things in his heart. Uncle Wu, it's still the same as before. Lingtian retracted his gaze and said with emotion. The heat was rising there, but the uncle still looked familiar. He always had a smile on his face, and his hearty laughter could be heard even on the carriage. This vendor is really kind-hearted. Qian Renxue narrowed her eyes and said softly, Lingtian nodded, smiled faintly, and said, Brother Prince, Uncle Wu looks quite fierce, but except for his loud voice, he is still very nice. Brother Prince, help me give these to Uncle Wu. With or thought in his mind, Lingtian suddenly thought of something and took out a bag from the storage ring. The soul coins in it were full of jingling sounds, and he knew that the number of soul coins was definitely not a small number for Uncle Wu. Soul coins are the most direct help point. The money in it is enough for him to buy a restaurant in Tian Dou city and live a prosperous life. This is also Lingtian's best reward for him. Aren't you going to send it over in person? Qian Renxue took the money bag and asked curiously. Lingtian shook his head and explained, no need, knowing my identity is not a good thing for Uncle Wu. This money will be enough for him to live a prosperous life. Qian Renxue smiled lightly and quickly understood what Lingtian meant. Zuling, give him this bag of coins. Be careful not to let anyone see it. Promise. Zu. Ling took the money bag. Her soul power gathered in her palm, and with a gentle push, the bag disappeared and suddenly appeared at the steamed bun stall the next second. After seeing the money bag safely landed on the stall, Lingtian also lowered the curtain on the car window. Let's go, Qian Renxue said at the right time. After Zuling responded, she slowly drove away with the carriage. After a while, we finally arrived at our destination. Qian Renxue and Lingtian got off the carriage and came to a candied horse stall. Qian Renxue stretched out her jade hand, gently adjusted Lingtian's collar, and asked in a gentle voice, does Ocean still remember this place? It sounds casual, but there is a hint of expectation. Of course I remember. Lingtian did not disappoint Qian Renxue. A flash of memory flashed in his eyes, and he said softly, the first candied horse stick that the prince brother gave me was bought from here. With that said, Lingtian walked to the candied horse on a stick stall and said, boss, here are a bunch of candied horse on a stick, please. Wait a moment, sir. Soon, the vendor handed over a candied horse wrapped in candy paper with a smile on his face. Still the original taste biter Rosie Hawthorne. Lingtian nodded with satisfaction. On the other side, watching a person eating sugar goods, Lingtian, who completely ignored himself. Qian Renxue's mouth twitched unconsciously. Good guy, the old lady is not yet important for the sugar good in your hands. Zhao Shan, have you forgotten anything? Even so, Qian Renxue asked with a smile. Lingtian still didn't perceive this and asked doubtfully, what's wrong prince brother? Zhao Shan, what about mine? Seeing Lingtian suddenly became so dull, Qian Renxue was a little discouraged, and there was a touch of resentment in the bottom of his eyes. He couldn't help sighing and asked helplessly, oh. Lingtian made a big realization and was annoyed by his head. Forgot to buy it for the elder brother. What can I do? Speaking, innocent eyes look at Qian Renxue. Otherwise, brother prince, let's eat one. After thinking for a while, Lingtian handed the rock sugar good to his mouth. The ice blue eyes looked at Qian Renxue, looking forward to it. It's just deep in the bottom of the eyes, but a smile flashed. Sister Sha, hook it. One person and one sugar good. How can there be two people? Feeding Sister Zuir is interesting. Huh. Qian Renxue snarked. Although he was a little unhappy, he still opened red lips, silver teeth, bite a sugar good, and chewed hard. Lingtian also bites one, and Sissy sweetly enters the heart field. Immediately afterwards, the sugar good was sent to Qian Renxue's mouth, and the opportunity to feed himself with strength. Qian Renxue didn't hesitate, biting one again. I don't know if it was because of Lingtian. Today, this bunch of rock sugar goods, Qian Renxue ate the taste of the year, sour, sweet and sweet. In this way, you won, I'm one, and a string of sugar goods will soon be destroyed by the two. Ocean, the sugar good is delicious. At this moment, looking at Lingtian, who was still endless. Qian Renxue smiled and smiled. The tone is very easygoing, and it seems to just ask. Lingtian nodded. Delicious. If you choose one in this palace and sugar good, which one does Ocean like? Speaking, Qian Renxue leaned his head, and his pale golden eyes looked at Lingtian, blinked gently, and it seemed that it was not himself, that he had thrown out the second choice. And one problem. The eyes of goodness make Lingtian tremble. A cold chill rose in the bottom of my heart. Under the guidance of instinctual desire, I did not delay for a second. Hurry up and said, brother prince. Of course, the prince brother, really, of course it is true. HUO. As soon as the words fell, the chill disappeared suddenly. At the same time, a touch of joy at the bottom of Qian Renxue quietly emerged, and the smile on his face became more bright. The cheeks were dyed rosy, and the willow eyebrows were soothing. Cunning eyes flashed from the bottom of Qian Renxue's eyes, and the frost-like fingertips gently pawed the forehead of Lingtian, raised the chin, and said, in this case, then you will not eat sugar good from now on. You will not be allowed to eat sugar goods for a month. 1 month, under the gaze of Qian Renxue's beautiful eyes, Lingtian leaned his lips and spoke the most with the hardest tone. Chapter 100. Tian Dou firm. Few looking at Lingtian, who looked like a doormat, Qian Renxue couldn't help but laugh out loud. Stop and go along the waypoint. Whenever they encounter something delicious or interesting, both of them will go there and try it out. Maybe it was because of Qian Renxue's company that shopping, which Lingtian usually found to be the most boring thing on weekdays, was full of interest today and not as boring as before. I don't know how much time passed, but the sun was high in the sky. The figures of Lingtian and Qian Renxue were walking through the commercial streets of Tian Dou City. They were full of people, various shops, stalls, and busy traffic. At noon, it's time to eat. In addition, the street the two of them were on was lined with restaurants of all sizes, and the aroma emanating from them inevitably stimulated their taste buds. Lingtian stopped and suggested, brother prince, let's go have lunch first. Qian Renxue nodded. The two people who had the same opinion quickly decided on their goal, and walked into a noodle shop that looked pretty neat. 2 distinguished guests, please come in. Seeing the clothes of Lingtian and Qian Renxue, the waiter quickly greeted them warmly, served tea and water, and was very busy. A customer like this who is dressed in gorgeous clothes is very generous, and as long as his service is good, tips will definitely be indispensable. Sir, what would you like to order? With that said, the waiter placed a thick menu in front of the two of them. Qian Renxue casually flipped through a few pages, then closed the menu and said calmly, let's have 2 bowls of beef noodles, and then pair them with some cold dishes from your store. How about I add some old vinegar peanuts, cold pig ears, and soy sauce beef? The waiter thought for a while, and recommended the 3 best-selling cold dishes. Okay, sir. Wait a moment. The waiter was also sensible, and quickly put away the menu, and started cooking. Qian Renxue put down her teacup, and looked at Lingtian with soft eyes. Ocean, where are you going to go shopping soon? There is still half a day left, so we can't stay in the commercial street all the time. Let me think about it. Lingtian's ice blue eyes kept turning, and suddenly an idea occurred to him. He thought of something and suggested, brother prince, how about we go to the trading house for a visit later? Okay. Qian Renxue smiled gently and nodded. Today especially used to accompany Lingtian. Of course, everything must be based on Lingtian's opinion. Just when the two of them were discussing which business to go to, the waiter brought 2 steaming bowls of beef noodles and the 3 recommended cold dishes. 2 bowls were filled with beef, and 3 plates of cold vegetables were opened one after another. The waiter stood aside and said respectfully, sir, your dishes are ready. Qian Renxue nodded, handed a Jinto coin to the waiter, and said calmly, take it to check, and the rest is a tip for you. Looking at the tempting soup base, Lingtian couldn't help but look forward to it. Use wooden chopsticks to pick up a handful of noodles, start blowing on them, wait until they are almost slightly cool, and then put them into your mouth in one bite. Tastes good. Although the noodles don't taste amazing, they taste pretty good. Qian Renxue, who was on the side, looked at Lingtian, who was enjoying his meal, and also picked up the noodles and tasted them. Qian Renxue picked up a piece of soy sauce beef and placed it in Lingtian's noodle bowl. She glanced at her beautiful eyes and asked in a warm voice, "Zhao Ocean, which trading company are you going to?" Qian Dou. Trading company, Lingtian. Pondered for a while, then laughed softly and said, "I haven't visited the largest trading house in Qian Dou city yet, but I'm quite looking forward to it, yeah." Qian Renxue nodded point. After deciding where to go in the afternoon, the two quickly settled down for lunch. Zuling drove the carriage and rushed towards Qian Dou Trading Company. Qian Dou Trading Company. It is one of the three major buildings in Qian Dou city, comparable to the Seoul fighting arena and the auction house, different from the oval-shaped fighting arena and auction house. Qian Dou Trading Company is a building similar to a cornucopia, with an overall height of about 100 meters and a width of about 100 meters. The overall building color is brighter. There are a total of 20 floors in total, distributed from bottom to top according to the degree of rarity. There are various types of things on sale inside: rare fruits, precious soul bones, soul beast furs, soul beast cups, exquisite clothing, etc. You can find all kinds of things you can think of inside. The sources of these things are very clean. Either Qian Dou Trading Company purchased it from the Soul Master, or it was acquired through exploration, or it was obtained by hunting the soul beast by oneself, or the Soul Master sent it as a pawn. The front floors are placed on different floors according to different valuations. However, from the 16th floor to the 19th floor, the items placed inside are of equal value, so they are placed according to the type of items they are: spirit beast category, clothing category, rare fruit category, and rare category. The items placed on the last 20 floors are all the treasures of Qian Dou Trading Company. All these things have a price, but no market. The purpose of placing them on the 20th floor is not to sell, but to show the background of their business. Of course, it's not just left there to gather ashes. If someone wants to exchange it with an equally rare item, Qian Dou Trading Company will still consider it. In addition to these items, there are also some strange things. Even the appraiser from Qian Dou Trading Company cannot estimate his specific value. Therefore, in addition to the normal floors, where items are placed based on their value, Qian Dou Trading Company also cleared the 10th floor specifically to place items that cannot be distinguished by appraisers. However, because the value of the items cannot be distinguished, these items are all sold at a unified price, all of which are 5 gold soul coins, and once sold, they cannot be returned or exchanged. Of course, in addition to items whose value cannot be identified, Qian Dou Trading Company also placed a lot of waste products among them. These are secrets that everyone knows. Anyone who comes to the 10th floor of Qian Dou Trading Company basically understands the rules inside. Although the price of 5 gold soul coins is not cheap, there are still many soul masters who come to this floor specifically to hunt for treasures with the mentality of giving it a try. Everything depends on luck and eyesight, but most soul masters return without success. After all, the appraisers at Qian Dou Trading Company are not vegetarians either. Their appraisal ability is second to none on the mainland, and there are very few things that even they can't see the value of, let alone pick them out of their hands. Moreover, even if you find a treasure, you may not be able to discover its use. Based on the above points, although there are many items on the Teobeo level, it is very difficult to actually find the treasures. It is difficult for ordinary soul masters to successfully find good things, but even though the probability of finding treasures is very low, there are still many soul masters who want to get lucky. Therefore, this layer is also jokingly called the Teobeo layer by most soul masters. If you think you are very lucky, you can try your luck here. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.